Hi, everyone. It's 5:30, but we need at least one more member to make quorum, so we're just going to sit tight for 5 to 10 minutes if we need. Okay, Chair, we have a quorum with our alternates if you'd like to get ready.
Thank you, Kelly. I will call this meeting to order. It's 5:33 p.m. Please call the roll. And do you want to still do the roll call?
Yeah, sure
Okay,
thing.
perfect. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Kyla Bailey,
Present.
Cami LeRae,
Present.
Corey Fredericks,
Present.
Veronica Gerhard, James Cooper,
Present.
Mayumi Joyama. Mayumi, can you hear us online? Just going to ask her to unmute.
Present. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
And Abby Lugtug is here as well. Absent at the moment is Jessica Bullard Nolan, Lindsay Darrow, and absent tonight will be Denny Martindale, Kathleen Arons, and Stephen York. But with that, we have a quorum of the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board.
I believe we just had a board member arrive too.
Yes, Abby's here.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, we
Okay,
got it.
awesome. Hi, Abby.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to item A2, opening public comment.
Comments heard under this item will be limited to three minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you're called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you'll be afforded 3 minutes. If you're attending the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time.
Are there any participants who would like to give public comment? All right. Here at this time, we have no public comment, so we will proceed to item A3. Staff Liaison Callie, are there any changes to our agenda tonight?
Yes, we have a request to move item C1 ahead of the development item. So we would hear item A8, then C1, then move on to B1, then C2.
Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the August 11th, 2026 agenda with the identified changes?
Motion to approve changes. Cami LeRae for the record.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Corey Fredericks for the record. I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Next item we have today is item A4, the approval of the minutes from February 10th,
Chair, we have
2026.
one extra item tonight. It's a election of board vice chair.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me. We're just jumping right ahead. We're excited. We have a board vice chair position available. That's item A4. We need as a board to elect. Is anybody wanting to put their name forward for that?
This will just be for the remainder of 2026 and we'll re-agendize in January with the rest of the officer positions.
And just to clarify, the vice chair seat takes my seat if I am unavailable to attend the meeting, which I'm pretty consistent with attending. So you're not on the hook too often. Anybody want to raise their hand?
At
We
this
got-
moment, it's between Abby, Corey, and Mayumi online because our
right.
alternates are not eligible, but we could also continue this item to a later meeting if no one
All right.
wants to put their half forward.
I can do it. Sabby. Lug tug.
All right. Abby, can I get a motion for Abby Lugtug? Abby Lugtug. It's an awesome last name.
Corey Fredericks, for the record. I move for that for Abby.
Okay. Thank you. And can I get a second, please?
Mayumi Doyama for the record. I second.
Awesome. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Abby.
I'll state
You're
for the
already
record
sitting
that
right next to me. So
member Darrow is here, 537.
say that again.
Just wanted to state for the record that Lindsay Darrow is here.
Hello, Lindsay. All right. Moving on to item A6, council liaison report.
We got to go back to A5.
Oh my goodness. Approval of minutes.
It's okay. It's been a while.
I didn't realize I need coffee this evening. All right. Now moving on to approval of the February 10th, 2026. May I please get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve. Abby Lug tug.
Thank you. May I get a second, please?
Corey Fredericks, I second.
Awesome. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we are moving on to item A6, council liaison report.
Yes, for members of the board, Councilmember Reese was not able to make it today. He's attending to some things with the current fires, so he wanted to express his apologies that he could not be here.
Okay. Thank you. How about item A7, staff liaison report?
Sure, I've got a few things. Kelly Shy, staff liaison for the record. No training topics or anything tonight, just some reminders and updates. Just wanted to remind members of the board and members of the public about Reno Direct, the city's non-emergency service center. You can give them a call or submit an online service request. And also wanted to shout out the city's newsletters. This should say Ward 5, but there's a special newsletter for Ward 5. We also have newsletters for development projects and planning commission agendas, as well as city council agendas. And the Reno report, which provides a snapshot of the latest Reno news from city manager Jackie Bryant. We haven't met in a while, so I wanted to mention some things that you might see that are different. For one, we have item A8, which is a Verdi Cab liaison report. One of our alternates, Veronica, is a member of the cab, so she graciously is going to keep us informed on what's going on there and keep them informed of what's going on here. So we'll hear more about that during item A8. With the new board and commissions resolution, all board and commission meetings are limited to 3 hours. If we anticipate that we have a large agenda and we'll need to go beyond that, we will get approval from the city manager ahead of time. Additionally, all project review worksheets are due within 72 hours. So since this board usually meets on a Tuesday, if you can make sure those are in by Monday morning, that would be great. Additionally, we defined unexcused absences. So that would just be failure to notify staff, myself, or Cami, our secretary, of your absence within 72 hours prior to the meeting. When a member reaches 3 unexcused absences, we just notify the council liaison so they can check in and see if they want to move forward with removal of that member. You might also see on the agenda that the member list was removed. We now just have a link to the online board and commission page. Updating the member list just causes some more administrative work that we're testing and seeing how that works. But with that, those are all the updates I have. Tonight's project is scheduled to be heard by the Planning Commission next week on August 19th. So if you can get those worksheets in by Monday, I can start getting those distributed to the planning commissioners and staff. We also have a requirement for one of our officers to provide public comment. That's just to summarize what the discussion was like here for that particular agenda item. You can submit that directly to the Planning Commission or send it to me and I will get it registered with them. But with that, that's all I have tonight. We have a council meeting planned for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Like I said earlier, the Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday here at 6 p.m. And the next Ward 5 NAB meeting is scheduled for September 8th. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Can you go back one slide
Yeah.
to the planning commission meeting?
This one?
Yes. What date are they meeting again? Is it that's the 18th, the slide next, right?
The Planning Commission
Yeah.
is meeting on next Wednesday on the 19th.
On the 19th.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, Cami Lurie for the record. So it's been a few months since we met, and I understand like the flow of agenda items from the city may not have warranted a meeting, but how do we ensure that any agenda items that the NAB may feel are timely to bring forward are addressed? Is that something I should be doing? Can you address that?
Yeah, if you are more than welcome to let me know via email. We try to keep track of what you guys ask for during that future agenda items section. And then it's just about seeing what we can accommodate and how we can get scheduling to work out.
Okay, for Cami Lurie for the record again. So I would just welcome anyone on the NAB. If you have something that you would like to bring forward and you want to see it on the agenda, please just email me directly and I'll make sure that that Kelly knows that there's something that we would like addressed. You know, because 3 months is a quarter year, so you never know what we might be seeing that we think might need attention from Devin. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, we're going to move forward to item A8, Verdi Citizens Advisory Board Report.
Hello, Veronica Gerhard for the record. I am serving on the West Truckee Meadows Verdi Cab, and I've been serving there since September 25. I've lived in the area for 5 years, and I'm just going to go over some topics and speakers that we've had come in during that time really quickly, and then go over some challenges. So some topics we've covered recently have been a fire preparedness presentation from UNR. It was extremely informative for the people in our area, but we struggled with attendance during that time. And then we also had NDOT and RTC give a great presentation from Paul Nelson, which highlighted to us that we need to activate our neighborhood for input on the network plan that will be coming up in our cab. That will be in 2027. And then those implementations will be in 28. So that's something that we'll be working on and we'll be hearing and updating about in the future. As far as development goes, during my time serving in the past year, we've only had one person come in to talk about this. And it was actually with the same Quilisi Toll Brothers area. They had a lawyer come in and notify us of development plans purely for the clubhouse. At that time, we asked a lot of questions and we were unable to get answers and we were left with no follow-up as well. Then I just wanted to highlight our two most common public comments that happen. One of which is people are commonly commenting on roads, and NDOT was called in to speak because of that. Mostly it's about speeding and congestion. And then related, the second most common public comment and reason that people attend is to talk about deer population and talk about the development that has happened in Quilisi being in the mule deer migration corridor and how that's affecting their population and also how it's moving them into our roads. And so we have had follow-up with some road signs in our area, but beyond that, there has been a little bit of a dearth as well. So going back to challenges, our first overall challenge that we seem to have is how to address our general low attendance. We're working on that with Casey McDonald, who is our representative. And then just kind of brainstorming together as well as a cab. And then our other challenge is that we seem to not be getting much development information. And I believe that's part of what my role will be on both the Ward 5 board and that board, is to be able to communicate to them a little bit better about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, moving to item C1, quarterly update from the Reno Police Department. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Corey Sulfrino for the record, your chief of police, and I apologize. We've got a lot of stuff going on in our community right now, so I too probably have to leave sooner than I'd like to, but you guys need an update, and I think you need forward-facing communication between our executive team. Chief Garlock just stepped outside real quick to take a phone call. What I will say is this: while we have several wildland fires that are ravaging our area, while it may not affect directly the city of Reno, as most of our area is due south of the affected areas, our regional memorandums of understanding and our coordinated response between the cities of Sparks, Washoe County Commission, and our law enforcement partners that coalition is strong, and we continue to stand up for each other. So while they're focusing on evacuation efforts and making sure that people are protected and we're getting humans and animals out as quickly as possible to the new evacuation zones, that our department is stepping up and answering the call while we're handling the priority 1 calls for service for the cities of Sparks and Washoe County Sheriff's Office. So our department continues to answer that call, and we continue to do it last night and into the wee morning hours of our Hot August Nights festival. Our department's tired, but they're answering and ready to make sure that public safety is first and foremost in our hearts and minds as we deal with the inevitable fires that seem to happen every year during this time of year, and this one is a big one. So praying for a positive outcome, and the next 24 hours will be very, very telling. But enough with that. I want to talk to you about what we're doing in the Reno Police Department. One of the things that I really want to communicate to this board is how we rebuild that internal trust and communication, both with our external stakeholders and our internal stakeholders. Strengthening our staff, improving communication with our community, expanding transparency. And I'm going to talk to you about how I hate that word, and I think it's overused and misused. To me, actions speak louder than words. You can say it all day long and not practice it. I want to practice it and show it through our actions. And then managing current enforcement priorities within the city as a whole and within specialty items that might be just indigenous to your ward and not necessarily Ward 1, which we had last night and talked about some of the things that were prior to what's happening in the downtown corridor. So despite the fact of how I came into this role, I think we have an amazing opportunity here in front of us to reassure to the community, to this board, and to our council that despite what may or may not have happened that led to me coming here, that the men and women of the Reno Police Department continue to answer the call each and every day. I don't want them to lose faith. The community should not lose faith in their department. I had the pleasure of wearing green for 27 years and watching this sister agency of mine that I now get the opportunity to lead from afar, had mutual respect and understanding for what was happening, but you truly never know until you're on the inside. With the sheriff's office retiring as the undersheriff before coming over to the city, we had that nice 1,200 person hotel that had average daily population, and trying to cater to that side of it. So patrolling in Washoe County is much different, managing that budget a little bit different. Coming into the city of Reno and seeing literally the competing interests that we have, the amount of major priorities we have co-occurring at the same time. Not to say that the sheriff's office is less busy. It's not. It's just busy in different ways. And while our city is literally running call to call to call and handling a lot of what I will talk are nuisance or ordinance crimes, where if we don't take and treat it, for those of you that are maybe in the criminal justice field or understand broken windows theory, that's why we do graffiti abatement so quickly. That's why we try to leave, we bring in our environmental design and we bring in our sit-rep people to do case studies and assessments on what's happening in our downtown corridor, so we can fix things up before they become blight, before they affect economic impact and everything down the road. So I think it's really important that we continue to support those initiatives. The one thing that Assistant Chief Garlock and I have done since we've come in is patrol is the backbone of any department. And we want to make sure that patrol is properly staffed, equipped, and trained to do their job on the daily. So that's where our focus has been right now. It's great to have specialty teams that take those resources, not necessarily away from patrol, but allow patrol to focus on their job so they can have direct action enforcement on traffic engagement, on our gang issues, on our human exploitation and trafficking, and then obviously on all of the crimes that detectives investigate now. It's become very specialized in the sense that criminals get smarter and they figure out different ways to victimize and prey on the public. So between financial crimes, between robbery, homicide, between crimes versus persons and our family crimes unit, they're task saturated in those realms too. Those are all important, but we really want to focus on getting back to basics and supporting the men and women of the patrol division. How we have communication within our command intent and how we're doing is we have daily briefs with all of our executive staff, and then we have our weekly executive staff meeting with our captains and managers of both sworn and non-sworn. So we can deconflict issues, we can talk about greater topics, we can see where maybe some of our shortcomings are at and where we're heading. We just want to open up those lines of communication. Greater visibility and availability of our leadership. I have an adage, if I'm up, or if you're up, I'm up. So I don't want people waiting to make a notification the next morning, or if they're needing resources and they don't know if it's worth waking up our executive staff. It absolutely is. We will work tirelessly to make sure that our men and women have the resources that they need to bear to make sure that they can handle those critical incidents. Now, that's not to say that they can't go and handle those incidents and make decisions based upon what they're experiencing in front of them. We're trying to decentralize that command structure and empower them to make the decisions that they need to. Otherwise, why do we have sergeants, lieutenants, and captains if they have to ask Mother May I every time they want to go out there and make a decision? So we're really trying to re-empower them to make those decisions, notify us when they don't have the resources to bear or they need to make those bigger level call-ins where we're bringing in additional resources, kind of like with the wildland fires that we have going on right here. Next thing, structured engagement with our bargaining groups. One of the things that we've asked both RPSAE, Local 39, and RPPA is give me an opportunity to fix it. If I don't know it's broken or if there's a process that hasn't been critically followed by the letter of the CBA, give us an opportunity to fix it before we start trying to do this through grievance appropriations and legal fees and arbitration. So we've been very successful in what I say is tackling the low-hanging fruit and having conversations about processes and streamlining initiatives so that we're not in a battle with our labor union. We want the support of our labor union. We want to hold our officers accountable. We want to make sure that we're working together, not against one another. And that has been overwhelmingly positive since I've come in there. Strengthening staffing, officer wellness. A lot of people talk to us about officer wellness and attrition. And this is where I'm going to let Assistant Chief Garlock, because what we talked about last night just really resonated with me. We talk about wellness because that's the political hot topic right now, is about the officer wellness and what are we doing on those wellness initiatives. And I hate to say back in my day, but back in my day, it was you shut your mouth, you sucked it up, and you went to the next call. And some people thrived in that environment and others struggled in that environment. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're empowering our officers to know that we have resources. We just built a beautiful new public safety center that has a fully equipped gym for all of our people to use. That's some people's wellness. We also have a peer support team where we have people trained, not necessarily clinicians on staff, but peer support that can come and deconflict issues and can talk about it. We also have sister agencies that have other peer support members because maybe somebody from my department or our department doesn't want to talk to somebody within their own department, but wants to talk to somebody that may be in the same space of law enforcement, but not be judged for coming forward. We're also looking at a bunch of different initiatives to bring to bear. We do have a federal appropriation for about $1 million, and we're looking on how to best utilize those resources to make sure that our officers have the proper tools that they have to deal with the trauma that undoubtedly we see each and every day. There's things that we can literally not unsee. One of the opportunities I had earlier in my career was to write my thesis on general strain theory and maladaptive coping strategies and how that affects law enforcement efficiencies and how it affects law enforcement. What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, it's been a day. It's been a couple of days. But how we're dealing with that. And basically, when we're not treating our officers at the lowest level, that they make bad choices, and bad choices left unchecked lead to discredit with our law enforcement community. And we want to make sure that the public, when they need us, they call us, and that we show up, and that they don't have that distrust. I've been fortunate enough to travel this country, to travel internationally on the law enforcement realm. And a lot of our brother and sister agencies, both across the country and internationally, don't have the love and support of our community. Our community is overwhelmingly supported. This body, this council, this city supports its law enforcement by and large. We are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think when we see things like this happen, wildland fires, officer-involved shootings, tragedy that strikes departments or specific to this area, this community, in my almost 40 years plus here now, rallies around its police department, rallies around initiatives. And you don't see that in every jurisdiction. My friends that work in Louisville and Chicago and New York and LA don't get that level of support from their communities. So it's really refreshing to be in here. I know Assistant Chief Garlock and I get a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Passionate about some of these things too, but almost embarrassed when we walk into an environment and we're wearing our uniform and somebody thanks us for our service. I always thank them for their support because it is our job to truly serve the men and women of the Reno Police Department in this community and doing what we do. We love our jobs. We're committed to it. We're here for the right reasons, and we want to ensure that our community knows that their support is valued and it means something to the men and women of the Reno Police Department, that when we see some of the social rhetoric out in the universe, whether it's in the tabloids or whether it's in social media, that can become very, very trying to our officers, and just tell them, let it roll off, ignore it. They take those comments personal. So when people come in and thank them for their service, it goes a long way in building that credit and that trust within our community. A couple of other things that we're doing too, and I just passed this over, so I want Assistant Chief Garlock to hit on it a little bit too. Well, on that wellness vein, we do need to talk about our officer resilience too. And what that is our ability to, in times like this, after we just got through one of our largest special events of the year, and now a wildland fire and some tragedy within the Reno Police Department and the loss of some of our officers over the course of the last 13 months, it seems like we keep getting hit right about the opportunity where we are trying to rise up. But we have to be resilient because we have a job to do. And we want to make sure that our people have the tools and the resources to know it's okay to punch out when they need to, but sometimes we have to soldier up and do the right thing. And I think last night, bringing that to the attention of the ward and everything else is very important, that we have to be resilient in our actions too, because our community requires us to be there and answer that call in times of tragedy. And that's what we do. As we start talking about clean and safe and park rangers under RPD, I'm proud to say that we were supposed to have a regional teams meeting today with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and the City of Reno Police Department and the City of Sparks Police Department, talking about further increasing our capacity in our regional team space. So the regional gang unit, the regional narcotics unit, the regional crime suppression unit, and additionally, some other units we're looking to get the biggest bang for our buck. You may have heard me say in some spaces earlier in press conference when I first came in here that criminals know no jurisdictional boundaries. They don't care if they victimize people in Lake Tahoe, Douglas County, Carson City, Reno, Sparks, Washoe. They'll go anywhere and everywhere. And we are truly stronger together, sharing that information, sharing that intelligence, sharing those investigations than we are apart. And in that space, and regionalizing our HOPE teams and working in concert with our homeless outreach proactive engagement teams through Washoe County, Reno, and Sparks. We're also bringing in Clean Safe and our park rangers to have a more coordinated response in what we're doing with our unsheltered population. I would say for the last 6 years, we've taken a very proactive approach and gently nudging people towards services. We've done that. We've been overwhelmingly successful in finding people housing and pushing people towards services. But we have about this 5 to 10% service resistant demographic. That is what we see on the daily. And that's where truly our hard work needs to start. I think we know we can't arrest our way out of that problem. We know that we need additional resources and programming here. And the only thing statistically significant that helps curb recidivism is programming. And we have a lack of programming and services in our area. So working with all of our regional partners, working with the new city attorney, district attorney, and working with our bench to actually push these people towards the services that they need. I got the unique opportunity, just for some historical perspective. all of the sheriff's office employees start in the jail and they transfer out to patrol based upon seniority. So our officers don't get the opportunity to see people as they get arrested, stabilize, detox, find a program, and that light comes on when they're on the right medication, when they are programming through the jail-based mental health unit. Some of the things that they're doing up at Par Boulevard are truly fascinating. Our officers get the opportunity to see people at their worst when they're at their lowest, and then they have to make that decision. There's no place to take them, but here's these nuisance crimes that left untreated. I much rather be the mean police and get this person services and make a low-level misdemeanor arrest so this person doesn't die on one of our city streets over the weekend in a snowstorm or in heat issues. So we're asking our officers to work. And then when they get up there, we have to work on those wraparound services. So when they get released from Par Boulevard, they're released to a program. They're released to long-term stabilization or an opioid treatment program, because the co-occurring disorders that we have going on in our community right now are robust. And there's a lot of things going on with opioid treatment that's amazing. If you guys haven't heard of a drug called Sublocade, it's a 6-month-long antagonist that can literally curb and dissolve the effects of the high that you get from those opioids. So the first inclination when somebody gets released from custody isn't trying to go down and chase that high. It's very debilitating for our officers to make an arrest, to go and book an individual, and literally before the paperwork is even completed, have that individual back downtown, no better or worse off than they were before, but just that same perpetual problem. There's also an article out there that I will share collectively with each ward called $1 Million Murray. And it was a gentleman that I had the pleasure of knowing many years ago when I was back in house arrest. And Murray was an individual who had a substance abuse issue, but every time he was on a program, he played by the numbers. He lived over at the 495 Morel building, which used to be the old Bug building. Now I believe it's a spa or a hair salon or a couple other different things, but he'd get a job as a sous chef at the Denny's. He did his community service. He checked in. He met with his case manager. Everything was on the numbers. And I truly believe to this day he'd still be alive if we had some sort of lifelong house arrest program, but that's not fair and equitable for him. But there's power to programming. And I think that's one of the critical pieces that we're missing right now. And we're going to continue to work on that vein with Washoe County, with our bench, and with our district attorneys, because that's going to be our way out of this problem. We currently have an academy underway. We have 10 people up at the Northern Nevada Law Enforcement Academy. That is a joint academy with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, City of Reno, and City of Sparks. We did have 11. We have removed one from the program for noncompliance, and then we graduated 22 last time, and we've have some lateral hires in between. Just to keep up for attrition this year, we're going to need 29 additional officers, just with known vacancies and planned vacancies. We're working with the city manager's office to get a robust academy going for January. That's not going to be any additional bodies. That's just to keep up with what we have currently. You guys would be surprised to hear my friend over here, Assistant Chief Garlock, has a tenure with the Reno Police Department dating back to 1995. And unfortunately, as our city continues to grow, our department is not kept up with that pace. So as we start looking collectively about how do we continue to ask more of our officers, how do we continue to ask them to do traffic enforcement, sideshow enforcement, address the homeless population, investigate cases, it becomes a burdensome task, and our officers are task saturated. So as we continue to look at ways to be innovative with technology and be a force multiplier, we will continue to do that, but our officers are maxed. Improving communication with the community. We've reinvented a couple of different panels that we have through the Chiefs Advisory Panel and the Community Impact Panel. What those are opportunities for us to look at policy decisions, high-level decisions, where those police services are going to be utilized through several different lenses, with our academia, with our faith-based community, with the public defender's office, district attorney's office, people of influence within the city in both the private and public sector. So when we address issues, we can look at it 360 and make good decisions on that. Where we'd like to drive the community impact panel, I kind of take it back to my days when I was a lobbyist down in Carson City while lobbying on behalf of Sheriff Balaam, Sheriff Allen, and Sheriff Haley, is Speaker Yeager used to say when he was chair of the Judiciary Committee in the Assembly that it was easy to make and vote on a policy decision when you had the District Attorneys Association, law enforcement, the unions, the ACLU, and the Public Defender's Office showing up in support of an initiative. It didn't happen frequently, but when it did, it was an easy policy decision. So the more eyes that we have on our collective department and looking at issues 360, I think will make us, again, show that transparency and not have to talk about being transparent. And our neighborhood advisory boards. I think it's important that you see Chief Garlock and I here several times throughout the year to have that communication. Normally, this is something that would be handled at the line level from either a sergeant or a watch commander, but because of what has been happening with our department, for an opportunity for us to get to know each and every one of you on an individual basis, see what's important to your area so that we can address those or at least triage those in our minds as we're making policy decisions. You now have a name to a face and an ability to kind of share your information and your intellect with us and where we need to take our department. Like I talked about, expanding transparency, I'd rather show it than say it. So one of the things that we're talking about is our crime data tracking and reporting. We have the opportunity right now, we're going through a generational change in our CAD RMS system. Our CAD is our computer automated dispatch. Our RMS is our records management system. We've been with Tiburon for the better part of my career. I did start, I hate to say it, on a word processor, or actually typed out our reports, and then Tiburon was relatively new when I first started. That has been our database for the last 25 plus years. It has reached end of life probably 5 years ago. We've been keeping it together with Band-Aids and bubblegum. And as we create the new hexagon system, a lot of this data that we'll be able to report will be forward facing. So while we push the timeline back because we did ask for a very specific, a very customized unit, they're building it the right way, but it's taking some time. And rather than pushing a bad product forward, we're working with the vendor, we're working with all of our SMEs to make sure that that product is deliverable and it's what we initially purchased. So one of the things that I'm excited about is bringing that crime data back to you guys so you can see what's happening truly in our city. And where this is important is the difference between what you might have heard as UCR reporting versus NIBRS reporting. UCR was the old Uniform Crime Report from the FBI. In 2000, they changed all of us to, for most of us that receive grants, to go from UCR reporting to NIBRS. NIBRS is National Incident-Based Reporting System. So you hear a lot of politicians, political officials, law enforcement leaders talking about how crime's at historic lows. Well, I want to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. One of those issues with UCR versus NIBRS is UCR was a hierarchy crime reporting system. If you had a kidnapping, arson, dombat, murder, only the murder got reported. None of those other instances in there got reported because it was a hierarchy offense reporting. The murder was the highest offense. In the National Incident-Based Reporting System, all of the offenses are reported, but here's where it gets a little tricky. If we have a murder-suicide, that's only one death because it was one incident. If we have a vehicle burglary ring where we have, let's say, Spanish Springs for existence, or North Valleys, or we're working with all of our jurisdictions, if all of those incidents are connected to the same individual, even though there might be 24 victims, it's one incident. So that's where I want you to be able to see the data and go, here's where the crime makes sense, here's where the crime doesn't make sense, and this is truly what's happening in our communities. So as we move that program forward, we're going to start putting more forward-facing data on our webpage so people can go there and see that. Additionally, we are working with a vendor that the city had already purchased called Power DMS to display all of our policies within the Reno Police Department. We're actively going through our entire 600-page policy manual, working with our attorneys, working with our labor unions, working with all of our subject matter experts and executive staff to go through all of our policies, make it more manageable, make it more tangible, and also put it forward facing. So if you want to know what our immigration policy is, or you want to know what our technology policy is, or you want to know how we respond to XYZ, you'll be able to not have to submit a FOIA request. You can just go to our website, dial it up, and our entire policy manual will be forward facing. I'd like to say I could have that done yesterday. We've been working on it for several months since Sean and I stepped into this office. It's going to take some time, but we will get it right. And as we get it published, we're going to push that out to the public because we believe that's important. Additionally, with our internal affairs activity, we want people to know what our use of forces look like, what those demographics look like, how many complaints are coming forward on our officers. We use that data to make sure that our officers are being managed appropriately. Now, I will tell you that there are early warning indicators that we have through people that are involved in excessive numbers of pursuits or uses of force or complaints that our supervisors intervene and let us know what's happening. I used to be one of those officers earlier in my career because I had the opportunity to be in what we'll call a felony unit where I had a canine and I went after the worst of the worst. So I was involved in a disproportionately number of uses of force. Every time I brought my dog out of the car and he had apprehended or located a criminal, that was a use of force. So we want to make sure that we're looking at that in context and make sure that those deployments are lawful, ethical, and moral. And furthermore, I hit the policy piece. Managing current enforcement priorities. I've heard a lot of, not complaints, a lot of suggestions about where those efforts need to come in from the Reno Police Department with respect to e-bikes and discourteous use, to our speed enforcement campaigns and what people are not doing on the McCarran NASCAR loop. Understanding that McCarran hits all 5 jurisdictions of local law enforcement. It's actually owned and maintained by NDOT, so it's the primary jurisdiction in the Nevada Highway Patrol, but it also hits the city of Reno, the city of Sparks, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, and University of Nevada, Reno, Northern Command. So we work collectively in that space to make sure that we're addressing the community concerns. Even had a conversation today with Councilmember Reese about potentially petitioning RTC and seeing if we can get some more digital feedback signs. Or we have 3 speed enforcement trailers assigned to the Reno Police Department. We deploy those to collect data so we can see when we can deploy our motor officers. Does it make sense when the motoring public is only driving 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, or when they're driving 35 miles an hour over the speed limit? I'd like to collect that data so we can be more efficient in our deployment of resources. So currently we have 3 trailers deployed down south, 2 in Ward 6, 1 in Ward 3. We start with the data collection, we move to education, then we go to enforcement. The enforcement piece sometimes is changed by the time that you pull an individual over. That's all they need to maybe change the behavior. Sometimes it takes a citation. I'm going to ask for your guys' help in a minute with that. And then additionally, sometimes people need to be arrested to prove a point. A couple of years ago, there was legislation that was changed that removed a majority of traffic offenses out of 44 traffic code from criminal to civil in nature. You might have heard of the civil infractions versus misdemeanor. So it's hurt us. I'm not going to lie. It's hurt us. A citation does not carry the same weight that it used to. And our job is not to over penalize the public. It's to protect life. It's to make sure that we change that driving behavior. And we're going to need your help because we've seen some efficiencies lapse in what has happened since removing criminal traffic code into the civil code. A lot of you guys and your constituents have probably seen a lack of registered vehicles, or maybe a registered vehicle that has a sticker that expired 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Anecdotally, I will tell you that if you have a new vehicle that's over $100,000, it ballpark takes about $1,700 to $2,000 to register that vehicle, and then depreciates annually based upon whatever that depreciation rate is. It would take our officers 10 times to cite you for a civil infraction before it costs the same price to register that vehicle. So from a financial standpoint, why would you want to register your vehicle? These are some of the unintended consequences that came from that legislation. So we're going to work with our City of Reno lobbyists as the session gears up next year in 2027 down in Carson City to see what crimes that we can move back in from civil to criminal and get a little bit more teeth and make sure that our people are driving safely. Again, the goal is not to over penalize. The goal is to change the driving behavior. And I just think that collectively, you look across our city right now in our region, and more people would rather display hand signals at each other and be vulgar at one another, or unfortunately flash firearms at one another, than just take 10 more minutes to arrive safely, or 15 more minutes. Our community is growing. You can't get from one side of this city to the other in 15 to 20 minutes anymore. You got to plan ahead. And I think those are the initiatives. That's the education campaign that we want to push forward. E-bike enforcement, we are going to look at some specific legislation for that. We were unfortunate enough to start our transition into this administration before the school year ended, so we couldn't get into the schools to do the education campaign about responsible e-bike riding and ownership. We are working with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and Washoe County School Police to make sure that we're doing more concerted education campaigns, and then talking to parents about being involved in their kids' lives and what they're doing when they leave their residences. And that kind of leads into our heat teams. The one thing that we're going to ask of our public and of our parents is get involved. Get involved in your kid's life. Know where they're at. Know what they're doing. Not trust them, but a lot of what's happening in the social media sphere, between the bullying, between the grooming for younger men and women that are being recruited into human trafficking and sex trafficking and just drug use and everything else that's going in our lives, is we're just asking our parents to take a more concentrated effort on what's happening in your children's lives, because the earlier that we can identify it, the earlier that we can mitigate it, and we don't have these individuals are being taken advantage of. It's easy to groom a kid, and we want to make sure that our parents are aware of those tragedies, and our HOPE team and our HEAT team are out there in that space doing great work, including our regional gang unit team as well. In Ward 5 through April and June, these are your top 5 Reno PD direct calls: illegal parking, graffiti, speeding, traffic issues, and requests for additional patrol based upon XYZ. So illegal parking, we currently took over the parking division, and in conjunction with our SAVE officers, they go out there and volunteer and tag vehicles and let people know. We work closely with City of Reno on that, but I know that continues to be a Achilles heel of every ward and what's happening in that space with the vehicles that are out there. Top 5 RPD dispatch calls for service, our EMS advisories, our medical calls for service, traffic stop, family disturbance, 1090s or alarms, and attempt to locate individuals. Our top 5 reports: destruction of property, battery, grand larceny, ADW, and discharging a firearm. Obviously, you guys butt up to the Peavine range, so there's a lot of congested shooting up there. So while that doesn't appear in a lot of the other wards, that is specific to Ward 5 and what you guys are experiencing there. Anything, Sean, you'd like to add?
Sean Garlock for the record. Just to go back to traffic, because as I look at these, and keep in mind, these are bullet points based off of raw data that we pulled from our systems. So if there is anything that doesn't look quite right to you all, or there's something that you feel should be addressed in what we would identify as our priority issues, and please, don't hesitate to speak up. To give you a little bit of history, and Chief kind of alluded to it. So I was hired in 1995. In 1995, for those that lived here, you would remember that the edge of our town south did not go beyond South McCarran. You had, I think, the K. Martin Lodge, you had the miniature golf and the go-karts out there. K. Martin Lodge was Reno's, but the go-karts and miniature golf and everything beyond that, all the pastures, were county. Back then, when I got hired, we had 324 sworn police officers. We didn't have Verdi. We didn't have anything that went out past that. We had Stead. The officer assigned to Stead usually was called the Stead Sheriff, because they were so far away from the city that they pretty much were the sheriff of Stead. So today, as you look at, kind of our geographic footprint in our jurisdiction, it's grown significantly since then. We are currently sitting at 355 sworn police officers. To go back to the numbers in training, currently we have the 10 in the academy the chief spoke of, and the 22 in street training. That 32 accounted for our attrition from 2025. It does not speak to what we've lost in 2026. From January to today, we had 14 retire. From today until the end of the year, we have an additional 29. So the 25 to 30 that we're asking for to start in January will account for this year's attrition, won't make up for everything that we lose this year. But also keep in mind, when they start in January, we will not see them on the street as a fully fledged cop until October of 2027. So you can see how we're kind of always trying to play catch up. Just another kind of point of trivia. When we look at our traffic section, we currently have 8 motors, traffic cops that go out and just do speed enforcement. We have 4 accident investigators. In 2008, 2009, before kind of the Great Fall, we were at 30 traffic officers back then. So we still haven't recovered from even back then. So to say that we're operating very understaffed at this point is kind of an understatement. But again, I think with the use of technology and a lot of the intelligence-led policing, we're able to refine the resources that we currently have and place them where they're most effective. Questions, I guess, is the next point, right?
What we want to bring up to you, or what are your community's concerns specifically? We have our idea. Sometimes we talk about these things until we're blue in the face and want to make sure that we're not missing the mark anywhere. So we know that crime is different and concerns are different in each community. We want to make sure that we're attentive to all of those needs to figure out how best to respond to those so that no person's voice is not left unheard. What types of community engagement or transparency from RPD would you believe is most helpful? And have you noticed trends in your neighborhood that you think RPD should be aware of? So as we have our dialogue this evening, or maybe you ask questions, maybe reference them with that frame of reference. And since Chief Garlock hit the nail on the head, how we've been able to stay ahead, how we've been able to be a force multiplier with our lack of staffing is technology. We truly, as drone as a first responder, you'll see that we've taken a very different approach to technology and what we're doing and what the story that we're selling is through social media. I will tell you this, that the ability to ensure that we have a solvability rate, that future people are not victimized, that when we have an officer who's dispatched to a call for service, a lot of times what'll happen is they get there, it's a crime in progress, we arrive on scene, and there's nobody to show for it. There's no evidence left on scene. They don't have a great suspect description. You're not going to pull copious amounts of DNA off of a car handle or anything like that. And unfortunately, it becomes almost like a business transaction. It's like, here's your crime report, call your insurance provider. I really don't have a resolution for you. This has given us the opportunity to literally get drone as a first responder on scene before the officers even on scene. So we have one of our officers back in our real-time intelligence center who hears the call come in through CAD, dispatches the drone as a first responder, gets eyes on scene, and can call that coordinated response in. Where this is nice from a liability standpoint and from an executive standpoint is we can escalate that call and we can de-escalate that call based upon what we see. Chula Vista in California was pretty much one of the front runners in getting drone as a first responder on, and their case successes have been invaluable to saving lives. They were able, in one of their case studies at IACP a couple of years ago in Boston that we had the opportunity to see and witness as they were talking about drone as a first responder going nationwide, was they had a lot of unsheltered population with co-occurring disorders, might sound familiar, who were having mental health episodes in parks, attacking people, holding people hostage. Well, one of them came out as a man in a park who was holding a woman hostage with a gun. They launched the drone as a first responder. The drone as a first responder with a digital 4K camera was able to see definitively that this was not a firearm, that it was a lighter. I think all of us in here can see how that could have tragically ended a different way. They were able to call back. They were able to get most resources on scene. They were able to get the woman away. They were able to take the individual into custody and get them the help that they need. And just in the few short months that we've been using our system, you might have seen last Saturday, we posted a pursuit that we were able to use Slack pursuit and not push the individual because they started taking innocent motoring public's lives at risk by going into oncoming traffic and dodging up onto the sidewalk. We backed our officers off. They called the shot from the sky. We brought in resources to bear and got that individual into custody. Previously, that wouldn't have happened. So we're able to solve crimes. I can tell you with the ALPR technology, I had the opportunity to be in what they call the high intensity drug trafficking area earlier in my career. We have this lovely little freeway called Interstate 80 that connects California to the New Jersey Turnpike. And a lot of people like to use it to run drugs, money, human trafficking victims, and everything else. So through my experience and training, we were able to pull over vehicles for low-level traffic offenses and ask them 3 questions. And during that time, have dogs run around the car, either indicate to the presence of narcotics or illegal substances in the vehicle or not, and have those freeway interactions and prevent drugs from hitting our community that were destined for our community. Additionally, I had a license plate reader on the front of my car. This technology has been in our region for 25 plus years. Flock seems to be the political hot topic right now that a lot of people are talking about. I will tell you this, that our policy is robust, that there are accountability pieces in there, that it's monitored just like we would criminal justice sensitive information, that I work specifically with a lot of stakeholders, especially in my former capacity as the undersheriff with the Latino stakeholders community. So there's been some falsehoods about who we're sharing our information with and who we're not. We're not sharing it with three-letter agencies. I've worked well with Maria Davis, with Claudia Castaneda, with Sandra Quiones, and we've really worked to bring in understanding what the relationship is with the police department and its community. And your immigration status is not our job. Our job is to protect our community, and we want to make sure that victims in our community are coming forward, that job is for other people. Our job is to make sure that if we see a crime happen in front of us, we're acting on it, and we want to make sure that you're calling us to bear if something happens to you. This isn't new, so I want to make sure that we're setting the record straight on what this is and what this isn't. And I know that a lot of that comes with some uncomfortable conversations, but we're willing to have those conversations and put that information forward so you have the best information out there. Additionally, we want to make sure that if there's an emergency, you call 911. That's the best way to get us to your front door. Additionally, if there's a parking problem and or something else that's more of a nuisance crime or things that you want us to be aware of, you can always call non-emergency dispatch. That will get you an officer based upon a priority scale. Reno Direct is a great way that we can track our service requests and understand what's happening in those wards and those communities. So we have that statistical data to make informed decisions. Obviously, you've heard me touting the Reno.pd.com website. We're going to continue to push a lot of our frequently asked questions, information, forward-facing data to that space. And then we want to highlight what we're doing with technology, what we're doing with our officers through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter. Number one, it's a recruiting tool for our officers as we go into this next generation of law enforcement. We want to show what we are doing in our community, how we are technologically savvy, how we are using evidence-based practices and intelligence-led policing to solve crimes in our community. And then we want our community to see what we are doing with their hard-earned tax dollars. So with that, we'd be happy to entertain any questions.
You guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much. I personally have seen a lot of improvement since the leadership change. And I'm excited to see what you guys are working on. I think it's really incredible that you have a plan. I think that's probably the first time I've seen a plan from the Reno Police Department. So thank you for laying that out and coming here and giving us such a great presentation. I do have a question regarding your guys' staffing issues. Is that more of a budget restraint, or is that more people just don't want to be cops anymore when they grow up?
That's a complex question, and I love it from a budgetary standpoint. We are overwhelmingly supported by the council and by the city manager's office to understand that. The issue results in how long it takes to train an officer. Honestly, from the time of application through the testing process, through the background investigation, through the training in the academy, through the training in PTO, that process is just labor intensive. We refuse, despite some other things that have happened nationally, to lower our standards. We believe that we are well compensated, that we are well educated, that we have a great training program, that we equip our officers appropriately, and that any deviation from that, bad things happen. We don't want to be on the national stage for what our officers did or didn't do. We want to be on the national stage for what our officers continue to rise to that level to do. It is if you got a better way of doing it in recruiting, I think that a lot of agencies have issues with recruiting. I don't believe that we do. I think that the paradigm has changed truly from when we first started. I think Sean and I sat in a room of almost 1,000 officers. I took my written test for the Reno Police Department at the convention center, and we took our PT test up at not Don Mello, up by UNR. We did our test that day. If you passed your test, you got a ticket to take your written test that afternoon. We went down to the convention center, and I think I was 27 of either 1,000 or 3,000. I forget the number. I still have the letter at home. I'll have to look at that. There's a story behind why I went to the sheriff's office first and not Reno PD, and then just ultimately made the right decision 27 years later, but we'll save that one for another day. But we used to have thousands of applicants. And today I think you have young men and women who don't understand the 24/7, 365 job that are valuing different things rather than service and seniority and time and grade versus, no, I want to go travel the world, or I don't want to work graveyard when all my friends are working or out going. There's a special group of officer that we want to recruit. There's a special breed that's out there. I continue to say that our officers are our greatest recruiters because they attract like-minded individuals, whether it's in the gym or their classes or their clubs or their associates, and they usually bring them in that way. So as we continue to reinvent ourselves and look at different recruiting strategies, I started teaching at University of Nevada, Reno, because I wanted to make an impact on young kids' lives. I found out the hard way that I didn't want to be an attorney after sitting in law school for a year going, yeah, I don't want to do this. I thought my whole career I wanted to do it. And having those conversations with students in their introductory criminal justice classes was my way of paying that forward, going, what if I told you you could have an excellent pension, that you could invest smartly, that you could retire after 30 years? You may or may not have $1 million in the bank if you invest wisely, and have a pension for the rest of your life, and you would never have to move across the country every 3 years that you wanted a job or a promotion. So there's opportunities out there, and our men and women continue to do great recruiting on our behalf.
Just mention a couple things really quick. Again, when we got hired, I think my applicant pool was 2,800 people. Today, we're looking at about 100, 150 maybe on a good week. I did a very informal, this is by no means scientific or formal, but before I retired initially a couple of years ago, I was looking at kind of the generational differences and their communication differences. I have 6 kids. They range from 27 down to 14. And so I saw this firsthand in my own house. They communicate differently. They're more tech savvy. They're more, texting and all the other social media stuff that I really didn't grow up with. And so I was kind of looking at some of the generational differences and some of the resources that I looked at. You take our generation, and we were kind of raised, you find a job, maybe that it's stable, maybe that it's long-term, or maybe it's something that you are passionate about. You find that job, and then you have a family life or a personal life that conforms to that profession. That's how we were raised. Today's generation, the best I can kind of explain it, is their priorities are the family life, the personal life. And so they are looking for a job that best fits that. That was explained to me by certain members of that generation, and also, just some resources that I looked up. And so we looked at our recruiting strategy and said, okay, how do we create an environment where it gets us what we need, but it still answers the priorities of this next generation? And I think that's what we're trying to work ourselves through. You look at, for us, we could retire at 20 years. We could retire at 25 years. Today, my son got hired a year ago. He has to do 33 and a half years before he can look at retirement. And so I can tell you from doing 3 decades of this job, and especially if I had to do 3 decades of it on the street, it wears on you physically, mentally, and spiritually. And to ask another individual to do this for over 3 decades to get a retirement, I just don't think you're going to get that kind of buy-in when they can go to another corporation or another business or another profession where you can do anywhere from 20 to 30 years, and then you can call it in. So there are a couple of challenges. The 33 and a half years came from another legislative change, something that I hope we get a chance to revisit and take a look at, because I think that will change the outlook on what our applicant pool looks like. They're not looking to do, over 30 years in a law enforcement profession to get that retirement. So just some things that we're looking at.
Awesome. Thank you. Does this board have any other questions?
I have a comment/question. This is Lindsay Darrow for the record. Thanks for coming to talk to us. You asked what was some of the safety or the issues in our communities. And if you, at least where I live, the thing that always comes up is speeding, traffic. That's the instances in our community, in the times in this community that I've felt unsafe. I mean, I've witnessed around schools multiple times, probably almost deaths, almost misses of people looking down at their, texting, going fast through school zones. So one question I have is, You mentioned technology, the lack of funding, all these things have come up, the lack of personnel you have. Why don't we have, like at every school, technology set up to take pictures and record this stuff and immediately find people going through every school zone? Is that possible? That's a way to raise money, to encourage safety. I mean, is this just like, is there something I'm not recognizing that is preventing those kinds of automated types of systems that would serve two
So
purposes?
Great question, Corey Solferino for the record. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has attempted to bring legislation forward the last couple sessions specific to traffic cameras, red light cameras, not so much speeding cameras. It has not made it out of committee the last two sessions.
It is state law. We cannot do that because of state law.
Yeah, just like educate me. What is the state law that
Have to be amended to allow a automated, essentially ticketing system without an officer making that connectivity. The state law does not allow us to. So despite Metro's efforts the last couple sessions to introduce legislation, none of that legislation has made it out of committee.
do you have examples where, like nationwide, are you aware of how citizens can advocate for that to actually make that kind of change and what the results have been?
There's several different states that have it, specifically on the East Coast, that have those. I know because when my daughter was in competitive athletics and we'd go to the East Coast and have to drive through several states, they would warn you and your rental car companies that, hey, not only are the tolls an issue and you'll be billed accordingly, but also dodging tolls and speeding, you'll be issued a ticket because during this time you're registered to that vehicle. I would have to digest that a little bit more to look, but we currently don't have the legal authority to do anything like that until they make an amended change to our Nevada revised statutes.
Is that something you would support, or?
I think it's a conversation that we can have. I know that there are some, I think there's some larger conversations to have, but I think it is something that we could absolutely look at to inform the public. That's usually what we do with our radar trailers, right? We want to collect that data first before we turn on the camera that actually gives you that digital feedback that says how fast you're going. We don't want people to go rushing down the street for the high scores. We coin it. We want that data as solid as it can be. Then we'll turn it on through that education campaign. We've seen some great success with Veterans Parkway, working with RTC and the digital feedback signs on there where, at dark it dips down to 35 because motorists were mowing over our wild horse population. So when it goes to dusk, the speed limit goes from 45 to 35, and there's that digital feedback sign that will start flashing if you're going over the posted speed limit. I think those things are important because, to your point, a lot of people are consumed with technology and what they're doing in their vehicles, whether it's answering a text or looking through Spotify or, heaven forbid, responding to an email on there. We want them with their eyes on the road, making sure that they're paying attention. So I think there's some conversations that we can absolutely have and move in that direction, but it has not been a priority of our state legislature the last two sessions to move any of those initiatives forward.
Thank you.
Corey Fredericks for the record. Thank you for coming to speak with us. I have several questions. First, you were talking about the employment wellness and resilience. I'm curious what sort of structure you have for post-employment, retirement, having come from a family of peace officers who have now retired. They have found limited resources available to them, or maybe it's that they're not opting into them. And I'm curious, if you are expanding your employee wellness into retirement when there is no job to do?
So it may not directly answer that question, but I will tell you this. We have a very young department. And we have been in conversations, and basically what we would like to do is bring in retirees and have them get together. When I got hired, I worked with plenty of veterans who had 20, 25, and 30 years on, and that's where I gained all of my knowledge and wisdom and experience. Some good, some not so good. But that's where I learned how to be a cop, from all those folks. The kids we have nowadays, they don't necessarily have that. I stay in touch with many of those folks that I worked with over the years, and they still feel like they have some gas left in the tank, maybe not necessarily do the job, but they still want to contribute. And so we're going to offer opportunities for them to come into the building to interact with our younger police officers, and still maybe provide that out for them or that release for them, but also keep them engaged with us. As far as to directly answer your question, I know the city has a pretty robust communication system as far as retirement news and resources that are available to all retirees, as long as they keep up with their contact information. But we would like to expand that a little. And I've had a number of retired folks that have expressed interest in wanting to come in and talk to our younger officers about how to last the job, until retirement. And some lessons that they had learned along the way, and also to teach some of our younger kids some resiliency within this profession.
And I think you hit a very critical point too. And Sean and I, having been in this job for several years, we were at a summer barbecue this summer talking with spouses of law enforcement officers and getting back into that spousal academy. So they understand that sometimes when your spouse comes home, they may not want to talk about their day, and understanding that and giving them the training and kind of pushing them through that same thing too. So we have that support 360, and our officers that are retired still have a ton to give, and you see them light up anytime we see them at special events. Ran into several during Hot August nights or during the rodeo or any of the events that happen in Reno. You see the old salty vets, and I think there's an opportunity there for us, a missed opportunity that we haven't capitalized on before, where they can give some of that, celebrate the history of the legacy of what they came up through, and impart that upon our younger officers as we kind of go through this generational transformation. I think we're uncharted waters, but we continue to move forward in that space. So thank you for the question.
That's great to hear. I think it's important. I am also from a mental health background, and I see the suicide rates in officers who have retired, as well as military personnel. And I would love to have a very structured, parachute landing, even for those who don't want to come back and retrain or things like that, but something that's there to support them.
Yes,
I think that would be fantastic. I also have a question. The Chiefs Advisory Panel, is that going to be publicized, or can you watch it? Like, can I watch it while I'm working or something? I assume it's during my working hours. I
Not
don't know,
yet, but you and I can connect after and we can figure that out.
Okay. Will there be like minutes or something I can look up, or just to kind of stay informed if I wanted?
Sure.
That'd be great. Especially talking about visibility in a way.
I'm sorry.
Visibility,
Oh,
your favorite. And then the Hexagon program that you said you're moving to, is the programming for that going to be in-house? Or are you going to have in-house programming, or are you going to have to basically call this program every time you want something new added once it is implemented?
Unfortunately, a lot of our SMEs had to become programmers. It started falling behind the curve, and that was outside the scope of our work. So we've worked really diligently with that programmer to get it across the board, but we should not be, our officers, our record clerks, our professional staff that's involved in this project should not be encoding. So it would be up to the vendor to do those things.
Okay.
So Hexagon is from a major vendor because it's such a robust system. We do have programs that our officers use in-house, smaller programs, and those are built in-house by our R&D section.
Okay. Just having worked with large systems like this in the past, it is handy to have somebody in-house who can do smaller things, and then that way you don't have to pay all those fees that would then be coming from the public as well.
Yes.
So I think that includes my questions. I really appreciate you guys coming and talking with us. I was impressed that you guys did this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cami Leray for the record. Thank you. There was so much information, and I'm so impressed with the trajectory that you're communicating to us. So thanks a lot for that. I have a question about the park ranger program. You had mentioned that it is now housed within the RPD, and I'm a little bit uncertain. I know for a while they were talking about making the Truckee River corridor part of a park system. And I also, on tangent of that is sort of the public's perception of safety along the Truckee River. And in tangent to that is a bike path we want to elevate for economic and social reasons. So could you just give me an idea of your kind of vision for the park rangers under your program with all that in consideration?
I think and we're still transitioning, so they're not totally under the umbrella of the Reno Police Department yet. We're still transitioning Clean and Safe over, and next will be the Park Rangers. But having them underneath our homeless outreach proactive engagement team, we understand where a lot of our unsheltered population frequents bridges, the river, the bike path, and our city parks. So by having that coordinated response where everybody's working in concert together, not individually discharging that population from one jurisdiction to the next, working collectively across city and county lines and within our own resources within the city. So we understand, again, we're really trying to push towards that service model, that program model, because I think that we've watched for the last 6 years, those individuals that are accepting of services have already accepted those, and now we're dealing with the service resistant individuals that have some complex mental health issues and substance abuse disorders. I spent 37 minutes talking to a woman when we were doing the awards for Hot August Nights on Saturday, and just talking about, why aren't you utilizing services? Why aren't you going to the CARES campus? And this individual was obviously in severe mental health illness and thinking that there's black magic and some other things that are happening inside the CARES campus. But we've got a long road to go, but we're on a positive pathway, and we've shown where we're at with the outreach and the service piece. Now it's time for the tough love and the programming piece, and that's the next step that we have to get over. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of the other sidebar to that, just really quick on the logistics side. So our park rangers utilize a radio system. They use our radio system. In order for them to continue to use our radio system and stay within state and federal mandates and requirements, they had to have certain pieces in place that only we house. They don't have, I think, the budget or the training to be able to do some of those logistical things. So there were some logistical challenges for them to continue on the path that they were at. But when we sat down and looked at it, it's going to be more efficient us working together rather than duplicating efforts and not having maybe the utmost communication coordination if we were in separate departments.
Thank you for that answer. My final question is with regards to the common theme that I hear about some of the ways that you are stymied or, handcuffed, excuse the pun, but with regards to the legislation and utilizing the City of Reno lobbyists to sort of address some of the issues that are challenging to you all. And I know that there's a lot of them. Are there prioritizations that you guys have that you've identified as far as your top 1, 2, 3 of what you want the lobbyists to try to push forward when the legislature reconvenes?
I think you're going to have a much more coordinated response. I had the luxury of being assigned to the legislature while a member of the sheriff's office. So understanding a lot of the players that are down there, working with Callie, who's our City of Reno lobbyist, and her team, and identifying that. We are constant communication with our law enforcement community when there's changes to statute that affect public safety. We have a very different lens than the union. We don't represent the union. We represent management. We represent public safety. So while traffic is a concern for us and some of the other things that we need to fix up regarding the legislative intent and what the policy is written, you get a lot of great people into a room and figure out a policy, and we literally will sit for 120 days and try to figure out that model policy and still miss something and find that loophole. So we will prioritize that. We will communicate that, and we will continue to make sure that our community is safe. We do have several priorities, but we don't even know who's going to be in office come November. So we have to make sure that we see who's elected, work on those BDRs, and try to find some bill sponsors to get that legislation changed based upon who's in office.
Hey, Abby Lugtug for the record. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation and coming to the NAB, especially given everything you've been dealing with. Really appreciate it. I found it very, very informative and very helpful. So I'm really looking forward to also you guys utilizing us when you want those legislative changes to also weigh in and be a voice. But also just like one really cool thing that happened in our neighborhood. We are on Keystone and McCarran, and there's kind of a large drainage across the way that has a park that a lot of folks are in. And one day a police officer came and knocked on the door and gave us his card because they had recognized some gang graffiti in the concrete down there. And it was so impressive because they were so on top of it and, came to the door, gave the card and just a positive to your team. And I know it's a small thing, but I was so impressed by that, especially given you have so many issues and it's such a busy city. So thank you.
Corey Fredericks for the record again. I have one more question. Because Burning Man is coming up, do you guys have a specific plan that's going to be happening as we have all these people coming to our area? Just curious. It's okay. I know you have to run also.
I thought you were going to let me get a freebie because when I was wearing the green uniform, I used to have to plan and coordinate that response because it becomes the 6th largest city in the entire state of Nevada over that holiday weekend. So we continue to evaluate our staffing models. And one of the things that I want to tell this board and the council and everybody in our community is using our real-time intelligence center, using evidence-based practices, using regional crime reduction strategies to ensure that we are appropriately staffing and responding to these calls for service. Assistant Chief Garlock and I continue to be more impressed with our fire response and what's happening up there because right now we're waiting for them to pull the trigger on whether this fire goes north or south and how many of our people we're going to have to call in and potentially bring to bear so we can handle the rest of our community, not just the city of Reno, but our community as firefighting does their efforts. So what I will tell you is when any critical event, when any critical incident happens and or special event comes to town, we continue to assess it. We do a threat assessment through our real-time intelligence center. We communicate with Southern Nevada Counterterrorism, NTAC in Carson City, and NRIC up at the sheriff's office to make sure that we have that total assessment and package so we can display and prepare and make sure that we have enough resources on the clock to respond to any incident that happens. So obviously that uptick over that holiday weekend towards the end, we know that we have everybody exiting the playa, coming to the rib cook-off, and then having the afterburn parties all throughout our city. So we will augment our staffing levels as appropriate based upon that as we have each year.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions from this board. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for all your hard work and good luck out there.
Chair, we do have one public comment on this item.
Okay.
We'll hear from Mac Rossi. Mac, go ahead and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
If you could hold tight 1 minute, Chief, I'd appreciate it. Mac Rossi for the record, resident of Reno. About a year ago, I pulled out a report asking for the top 100 salaries in the city of Reno as far as staff. And lo and behold, 22 sergeants were on the top 100 with an average salary of $325,000 a year. That was including their salary, their base salary, overtime, and benefits. I'd like to ask the chief, how does that come about? Thank you.
I believe you can choose to respond or not. I don't.
Corey Solferino for the record. With respect to our labor unions, our officers are represented by the RPPA. They enter into contracts with the city of Reno. Our supervisors are represented by RPSAE, our Supervisors Association. Our officers, our sergeants, our lieutenants, our captains are not salaried. They are hourly employees. So based upon the contractually agreed upon rates for overtime, for holidays, for regular hours, for shift differential, for education incentives, for bilingual incentives, for specialty pay incentives based upon their assignment, their discipline, their extra credentials. They're compensated based upon those hours that they worked. So as we talked about some of those shortcomings in our community with our officers, our sergeants are continuing to be out there supervising the people. The span of control is important. So because we do have contractual obligations as far as supervisors are concerned, our officers have to be out there, they have to be supervised, and our sergeants are compensated accordingly based upon those agreed upon CBAs. Additionally, that number seems somewhat inflated because of the benefits package, because not only is that their compensation, that's also their contributions because they don't pay into Social Security and to their peers' contributions. So those aren't monies received that they're getting. Those are monies that after they meet that 20-year, 25-year, 30-year, or 33.5-year is their pensions, so to speak. So that number does seem inflated. It's because of those numbers that the city is paying into their PERS contributions for the retirement because they do not pay into Social Security. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready to move on to development projects. So item B1, the Tumwa Santier Quincelli. Come on up.
There it is. Good evening. For the record, my name's Dave Snellgrove. I'm the planning manager with Bowman Consulting Group here in Reno. With me in the audience tonight is Michael Friend, who's with Tumwa, project manager, and we also have two of our engineers from Loomis and Associates who worked on this project, Mr. Dan Newton and Austin Collar. All right. Woo. There we go. So the project request that we're bringing forward is for major site plan review. There's different aspects of this. Under the major site plan review, we have major site plan review for grading, and that's also cuts and fills, and I'll go over that part of it. And also there's grading in a parks, greenways, and open space zoned area, which we are in. Then we have hillside development. That's when you get slopes that are steeper than a threshold, and we do cross that, and I'll explain why that's actually a good thing for a water tank. And then we have a residential adjacency issue. All of those get covered under what the city calls a major site plan review. The project provides access and construction of two 400,000-gallon water tanks to serve the previously approved Centerra Quillisi Ranch subdivision. And the case number is 21000. I think I put one more zero in there. 17. Too many zeros. This is a replacement of a tank that was previously approved, and I'll go over that. I've got some graphics to kind of show you where it was before, and I'll explain why it ended up not working out well at that location and what we're proposing now. So the development area is only 4.23 acres. That's the area of disturbance. In its entirety, it's on a 242.86 acre parcel. There's a very large parcel this is on, but we're disturbing only a small portion of it. So the parcel highlighted in blue is that 242 plus acre property, 4.23 acres of it, which is 1.7% of the overall property is affected by this proposed development. The proposed development area and where we're grading the access road follows a previously disturbed roadway. It has to be widened out. It has to meet Tumwa's standards, not steeper than 10%. They need to be able to access this in all weather surfaces. We've actually got guardrails on certain areas of it that'll have to be put on. But this is a better location than what was originally planned and approved in the tentative map. This map over to the right, that's actually the layout that came out of the tentative map. And this one was important because it shows the water tank locations and the utility locations. So the two green ones are within the development area up to the north of the blue circled area is the one that we're replacing. The two green area ones are closer than we will be to propose I won't say propose, I'll say approved future residential areas. One of them up there, kind of on the eastern side, that one's actually right next to future homes. I do have a picture in there because that tank has the same color as what we're going to have here. It's called olivine green, and we'll get to that. And helps you understand how it kind of blends in. It does still looks like a water tank. Water tanks do look like water tanks, unfortunately. So this is an image that shows where the tank was approved before in the orange. And then in the green is our new tank. The distance between the two tank locations is about 1,200 lineal feet. The one big thing that was found when they got in and really started looking at this previously approved tank is that cross slope that the roadway goes up, really steep. And the roadway was 14% as it exists right now. I mentioned before that you have to have a roadway for Tumwa standards no steeper than 10%. In order to do that, you'd have to run a road at a lower contour, and you'd have to do some pretty significant switchbacks to get up to the location that your tank needs to be at. Water tanks work on pressure, and you have to get enough pressure and head for the water to come down and meet the necessary flows. You can use pumps and different things like that. They try and do it by gravity. And that's what this new site allows us to do, is to operate by gravity. We have a shorter overall road, as mentioned before. That general alignment, we go outside it a little bit, but that general alignment of the roadway was previously disturbed. And then where the tank site is located, that was a little bit bigger area that worked out well. And it actually worked at the right contour for the pressure necessary as part of the overall water tank system within the Sunterra Quilcy development. When this first came up, I asked the planning manager with the city if we might be able to get what's called substantial conformist, because we're still proposing a tank. And he said, I wish you could. However, you've got different cuts and fills. You've got a different area that you're dealing with hillside development. We need this to go through on its own. So this is not proposed by Del Webb. This actually proposed, the applicant on this is Tumwa. So this will be a Tumwa facility, and they'll have easements on it. I don't know if they'll ultimately get a property parcel area from Del Webb or not, but yeah, this will be a Tumwa facility. So this is some photos of the site. You can see on the bottom left, that's the existing roadway that had been graded previously. Bottom right, it's kind of that flatter pad area. There was a pad area up near the top, and you can see the top photo shows the existing serpentine roadway that goes up, and I have where the proposed tank site is, and that area widens out just a little bit. So we are working with that sloped area. The zoning on the property, I mentioned before that we have grading within a parks, greenways, and open space, PGOS. Zoning the property is master planned and zoned PGOS. And again, we've gone over the 4.23 acres. Those areas that you see coming off, that's the edge of our disturbance area, and it goes down, and the roadway, access road, will connect in with one of the future streets within the Sunterra Quilcy subdivision. There will be homes right across the street as part of the tentative map on that bigger road, but that's really not part of the proposal request, really the grading and the colored areas that you see here. The reason that we tripped residential adjacency is we had grading next to, and we actually go a little bit onto the SF9 zoning. The tanks themselves are over 300 feet. The measure that the city uses, you're within 300 feet with non-residential development adjacent to residentially zoned property. We're 475 plus or minus feet from the residential zoning, and they said, nah, because you have grading that's going up and it's associated with non-residential, you would have a residential adjacency review. The appearance of the tank, I mentioned the one tank that would be right next door to some lots. Over here on the left, that is a tank that's already been constructed. It utilizes the olivine green color. And then on the right-hand side of where the proposed tank site is located, there will be development that goes farther to the south. It gets closer. It tends to become a little bit less intense. You made a mention earlier, one of the things in the Verde area that were concerned the mule deer habitat. If you go back and you look at the layout of the subdivision, also where the tank is, there's space in between that the mule deer will still be able to go. So when I heard that comment, I thought, oh, I can help address some of that. This is a close-up of the tank. This is what olivine green looks like. If you didn't know and you want to choose this for one of the rooms in your house, you can go ask them at Kelly Moore or Reno Paint Mart. We will have an 8-foot tall fence with barbed wire around it. Water tanks and water facilities such as this do fall under Homeland Security, and we've got to have appropriate safety features in association with it. We don't have any landscaping around the site. It doesn't make sense. A lot of times water tanks will tend to be up on hills. Sometimes they're a little bit lower, but unless it's a treed area, if you put trees up next to a water tank, all it does is draws your attention to the water tank because you see the trees and then you see the tank. So we have grading. I mentioned cuts and fills, one of the aspects of our application request. The threshold for the city of Reno is you have cuts in excess of 20 feet or fills in excess of 10. So these green and red areas show the cuts in excess of 20, and the green show the fills in excess of 10 feet. Fairly limited areas. There's only 1,600 square feet of area that's in association with cuts more than 20 feet. And there's just over 10,000 square feet of the overall site is in the fill areas more than 10. This looks pretty red, and we try and color these like a stop sign. With hillside ordinance, 0 to 15% slopes, those are considered to be your most developable areas. The 20 to 30 or 15 to 30% slopes, the yellow, orange, and then the red, not the real dark red, I guess it would be a brick red. But those three in the middle tend to be still developable, but it's more moderate. And then when you get into the 30% or greater, which is that brick red color, that's where they typically don't want to have development going. However, I'll mention that with water tanks, it's necessary to get some elevational difference in order to get the pressure. So the nice thing about this is it keeps the actual facility relatively close to where the service area will be and gets up to the appropriate elevation as quickly as reasonable. So the elevation does actually help here. Worked on quite a few tanks over time, and most of them do exist in areas that I would say trip hillside ordinance, whether it be in the city, Washoe County. We all kind of use the same measure in the area here. So the folks that we have in the audience tonight, I got Michael Friend here. Mike and Dan Newton, the second one on the list, they're more technical than I am. And if you have any technical questions, I'm gonna call them up and they'll be able to answer those. I can talk generally. I'm the third one down here. I'm Dave Snellgrove Bowman. And then Jeff Foster is the planner working for the city of Reno, who we've been communicating with and working with on this project. Our next step, and I'll mention, it's never my desire to go as quickly as we are. I was actually asked, we were supposed to come in July, and I got a call from Jeff Foster, and he said, hey, Ward 5 only has one item on their agenda, and we're wondering if you can push to August so that we don't have to do a meeting that night. Well, as it turns out, we're the only item on this agenda too. So I would have been happy to come in July. It's a short time frame. I know when you fill out your comment cards, what I would ask is anything that you're going to write down on there, if you could state it verbally, especially since we're closer time frame. So whether there's a positive or negative comment, I'd like to be able to register that so I can talk to our team about it if there's any concerns or issues. It's very helpful to us on the development side to be able to hear and understand what the comments, concerns, or questions may be. With that, I will close my presentation and be available for any questions.
Great. Who's got questions?
Hi there, James Cooper for the record. Considering the steepness of the slopes and cut and fill slopes, those usually have some significant stabilization efforts. Are you planning for stabilizing those with, large class 300 riprap, rockery walls, things like that to be able to maintain the road there? I've seen in the past where when that happens, it can lead to, visible color of the rock being seen from far away from the residential areas. And I'm just curious if those things are being considered, if you plan to do staining on the rock.
I'll speak to that in general, and we've got some draft conditions already, and one of them is for us to color the rock to more natural color. However, I'm going to talk to the staff planner on it because in our proposal, we'll have the riprap, and then we'll put, I think it's 6 inches of material over the riprap and revegetate that. We had a biological assessment for vegetation done on the site. We've got Western Botanical has been working with us. And over time, I've seen this work out very well. First time I worked with it was probably 20 plus years ago down off of Fawn Lane. And a resident had a riprap zigzagged driveway, and they just went ahead and pushed material. The county was not very happy about that. You can't tell where that riprap is today. So it works very well. It takes some time. There will be some visible scarring. You'll see it, but the riprap won't just stay there. A lot of times the riprap view just kind of remains. You get a little bit growing up in between it. But the intent here is that there will actually be, it'll look revegetated over time.
Great. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Veronica Gerhard for the record. I just had a question about, you were talking about the vegetation that you're putting in, and Toll Brothers is the one that's, I believe, in that area, correct?
Yeah, Toll Brothers
Toll
is
Brothers.
the developer.
Uh-huh.
We're
So-
just going to be revegetating, and
Mhm.
basically it's going to be seed mix and strippings.
Okay.
So we'll get the natural vegetation that's there, and also an appropriate seed mix. And working with Western Botanical, they'll come up with something that'll match that environment well.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's nothing decorative. It's just.
Oh, no, there's nothing
Okay.
decorative at all on this. We're gonna try and get it so you'll end up seeing the tanks up there, but over time, we want that slope to kind of repair itself. And obviously, it's gonna be a zigzag road going up there, but it won't look like a scar in the future.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I think we got a question down here.
Corey Fredericks for the record. I was curious, I'm sorry if I missed it in your presentation, but would Tumwa and the city or the county be paying for that? Or is the developer going to be paying for that?
That's one that's outside of my pay grade.
Oh.
I'll have Mike, why don't you come up and explain that one so we give the correct answer.
My name is Michael Friend with Tumwa. Originally, Toll Brothers took over this project, but we have such strict standards and everything. And just working with it, they thought it would be better if we oversaw the projects and it could meet our standards, because we take it over and have to handle it for the next 30, 40 years. So we have an agreement with them to build it, and then they're going to reimburse us for it. So it's technically all through the developer.
Okay.
So no city funds or anything like that, or public funds.
That's fantastic. I'm all for this.
Any other questions from the board? No, hearing none. Thank you guys so much for coming.
And welcome to your new member. We talked to him outside. He's a newbie.
We're breaking them in.
Chair, we did not have any public comment on that item, just for the record.
Okay, thank you. I was just about to ask. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item C2, Regional Transportation Commission. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Paul Nelson. I'm the Government Affairs Officer, and I've got kind of a two-part presentation that I'll be giving. The first one is about a ballot advisory question that you'll see in the November election, and then I'll get into some of the projects that we'll be doing here in Ward 5. So when it comes to the ballot question, it's about EV fees, and RTC doesn't support this ballot question. It doesn't oppose the ballot question. We're just here to let people know that what the ballot question does, how it got to where it is, and some of the different studies that have gone into play with it. So this will be the ballot question when you go to the polls in November, basically asking if you want the legislature to allow Washoe County to impose a fee for electric vehicles and possibly for also hybrid vehicles. And also whether or not they can index the annual fee at registration, just like we do with our fuel taxes. So the way we fund our roads right now is every time you go to the pump, there are three different taxes. There's local, state, and federal gas taxes that you pay. The majority of that does stay local, and all of that goes back into our road funding. So we do the major road construction, we do pavement preservation, and we do safety improvements. Over the last 5 years, we've invested more than $420 million into our road infrastructure, but you can also see that $4.6 billion is going to be needed over the next 25 years or so for 107 different projects that we've got in the area. One of the things they'll point out is that it's strictly fuel tax that pays for our roads, and EVs obviously don't use gas, so there are no gas taxes. Some of the fuel tax investments that we've made over the past few years, Arlington Avenue bridges, we just completed this just a couple of months ago. It took us about a year to complete both bridges, which was pretty impressive. It was supposed to take 2 years, but Granite Construction found a way that they could divert the river twice, build one bridge at a time, and do it in one season. So we were really happy with that. The Southeast Connector, that was a game changer for our region, building that north-south route connecting Sparks to South Reno. Mill Street capacity and safety, that just wrapped up a couple of months ago. Sparks Boulevard capacity improvement, that one is happening right now, and that will wrap up next summer. And the Meadowood Mall rehabilitation, of smaller job, just those 3 small roads that connect into the Meadowood Mall. What I want to point out on this is they are very different in price tags. So you got 1.7 million for Meadowood Mall, you had 276 million for Southeast Connector. So not all projects are created the same. One of the things that is really important that we are allowed to do because of the indexing of our fuel taxes is our pavement preservation program. We do this every year. On average, about $23 million we invest into keeping our good roads good. 150 to 200 lane miles are treated every year, or 2.2 to 4.9 million square yards. That's enough to cover 1,000 football fields. Annual investment. This is a much more affordable way to keep our roads good rather than letting them crumble, where you're paying about 10 times as much to rebuild the roads. Costs $51,000 per lane mile and $2.80 per square yard. So the challenge that we're seeing right now is that revenue is no longer keeping pace with the system needs. The growing fund gap over the next 10 years is estimated to be about $1.4 billion for road maintenance and construction. That's driven by rising construction costs, aging infrastructure, and changing fuel consumption patterns. The indexing that we do with our fuel tax is based on the producer price index. And you can see that the inflation is outpacing the PPI by 110% over the last 10 years. Some of the unfunded projects that we have: Vista Boulevard widening, $25.6 million. The West 4th Street Sparks multimodal project, the Cold Springs to Red Rock connector, and the Pyramid Way Phase 5 widening. Again, very different price tags depending on where you're at. Pyramid Way Phase 5, obviously the most expensive one there. So what we're seeing right now is, if you look in 2020, a lot of people were working remotely, not as many people were driving. So you had low vehicle miles traveled every year in our region, less than 3.7 billion miles traveled, but that's been going up every year since. So if you look now, as of 2024, more than 4 billion vehicle miles traveled just in our region. So people are driving a lot more now. But at the same time, the taxable gallons sold, they've been dropping. So in 2019, almost 184 million gallons of fuel were sold in Washoe County. That's down to less than 174 million gallons sold now. So obviously, less fuel purchased, less revenue coming in to fix our roads. People are driving more than ever, buying less gas. One of the reasons is fuel efficiency, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles. If you look in June of 2020, hybrid vehicles registered in Washoe County were about 6,300. That is up to more than 16,000 now. And we should be getting the new numbers for 2026 here in the next couple of months. If you look at the EVs, 1,500 were registered in Washoe County in 2020. That's all the way up more than 10,000 electric vehicles registered in Washoe County now. That's a 562% increase during that time. and 159% increase for hybrid registrations. So if you take all those vehicles and if they were paying either a fee or if they were buying gas, it comes out to about $15 million during that time. So that's money that we could have been putting back into our infrastructure. So we had the Gwynn Center do a study to look at different ways where looking at what other states are doing, looking at what Nevada could do, just on how we could recuperate some of that lost revenue from electric vehicle owners and hybrid owners. At additional registration fee, this one would be a fairly simple process because everyone has to register their vehicles every year anyway. It would just be an additional fee on top of that that would be dedicated to go into road funding. Vehicle miles traveled, this would be one of those ones where you pay every year based on the number of miles you drive. This one's a little bit more complicated because it's very expensive to implement the technology and it takes a couple of years to implement the technology. So it's expensive and it takes longer. There are also a lot of people that don't like the idea of having trackers in your car that will have that data. There's privacy concerns. So this one is a little bit more challenging to implement. The other one was electric charging stations. So every time you go to a public charging station and you charge your vehicle, you would pay a percentage that would go into our road funding. You can look at also this chart right here. It shows how they scored. The enhanced registration fee obviously scored the highest. The lowest was kilowatt hours. One of the reasons for that is most people charge their vehicles at home, and states that have put this into place really haven't seen a very big bump in the revenue that they collect. The vehicle miles traveled, it generates the most revenue, and it has the best environmental effects. But again, it's very hard to implement. So if you look at this map, Nevada is one of 9 states that does not have some kind of a fee or a tax for electric vehicles. The other states, they've got different programs in place. They range from $50 per year to $250 per year. Utah has a hybrid program where you can either pay a flat fee at registration or you can pay vehicle miles traveled. So if the legislature decides to go ahead and put in some kind of a fee, then they can look at what other states have done. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, and they can really take what programs seem to be working in other states. So after the Gwynn Center did their study, FM3 went out and did some polling of voters here in Washoe County to find out if they think that it's a good idea that there is some kind of a fee in place for electric vehicles, and then half of that for hybrid vehicles. And you can see 6 and 10 do support it. 61% say yeah, they should be paying. 36% no, says no, and 3% are undecided. And that funding would go to funding our roads. So we also talked to EV owners and people that plan on buying EV and hybrid owners and people that plan on buying either an EV or hybrid in the next few years. And if you look at that top line there, EV owners, 58% of them say, yeah, there should be an additional fee to go into our roads. 38% said no. And then if you look down at the bottom, people that are likely to buy hybrids or electric vehicles, 61% say, yeah, there should be a fee in place. 37 to 35% say, no, there shouldn't be. Indexing, like we do with our fuel every year, where it goes up a few cents every July 1st. They also asked, should this fee be indexed to meet, at least partially meet the inflation because of construction costs associated with labor and materials and things like that. 60% say, yeah, there should be indexing too. So we had FM3 go out and do another poll back in May because the Iran conflict caused the gas prices to go up. And we wanted to find out, okay, do people still have the same opinions now the gas prices are higher? And we pretty much got the same results. 6 out of 10 people say, yeah, there should be some sort of a fee in place. 37% say no, 3% undecided. So really, all these polls are very similar. So people that say, yeah, we should have some kind of a fee in place for electric vehicles and hybrids say that if right now 6% of the fleet in Washoe County is electric vehicle or hybrid. So if 94% of the drivers are paying to build the roads, the other 6% should also be paying. So it's a pay their fair share type of thing. People that were opposed to it have concerns about wasteful spending. Government sometimes, especially at the federal level, you hear a lot about wasting the taxpayer money. Also, they do have concerns that this would discourage people from buying electric vehicles. So just backing up a little bit, showing a timeline of how we got to where we are today is in 2021, the legislature created an advisory working group and they came up with the Nevada Sustainable Transportation Study, where they looked at all these different methods and possibilities for capturing revenue from electric vehicle and hybrids, and then possibly down the road, changing our entire tax structure when it comes to funding our roads. NCE did a maintenance needs study a year later. And then in 2024, 2025, the Gwynn Center did the Bridging the Gap study. FM3 did the polling at the end of last year and then again this last May. They presented all this information to the RTC board and then they approved kicking this up to the Washoe County Board of Commissioners. They decided, let's go ahead and put this on the ballot in November and ask the voters if they should recommend to the legislature that there should be some sort of a fee in place. So why this matters to Washoe County is we've got pavement preservation to keep our good roads good. We've got our safety improvements, trying to reduce crashes at certain areas and address congestion because there is a lot of population growth. We're seeing a lot more traffic. So we need to address capacity to reduce delay and increase mobility. So again, here is the ballot question. It wouldn't take effect if the voters approve it. It only advises the legislature to approve it and give Washoe County that ability to add this fee. All right, now we'll get into some of the things that we're doing right now. We started this program, the Neighborhood Network Plans, about a year ago, and we divided the region up into 12 different neighborhoods. We've already done the study on 2 of the neighborhoods, Central Reno, Central Sparks, so number 9 and number 7 right there. This year, we are looking at implementing those improvements. This is basically looking at neighborhood by neighborhood, how we can improve walkability, bikeability, make it safer for people that want to walk within their neighborhoods and not have to get in their car every time. So those will be, we're going to actually, this got delayed till probably March, but we'll be starting to make the improvements in the first 2 neighborhoods next spring. In the meantime, we're studying number 10 and number 2 on that map right there. So that's the Meadowood Mall, Hidden Valley area, and also the Panther Valley and Sun Valley areas. Next year, we'll implement those improvements. And at the same time, we'll start studying number 5 and number 6 right there. So the bulk of those 2 neighborhoods are in Ward 5, where we'll be looking at those 2 neighborhoods to find out how we can make it more comfortable and safer for people that want to ride their bikes or walk in their neighborhoods. So I forgot a slide. One of the slides we're going to show is some of the quick builds that we do. It's about a $5 million a year project per neighborhood. And you put in certain infrastructure like bike lanes. Some of them are protected with bollards, things like that. There are bulb outs and medians in the middle of like a 4-lane road where you can stop. It's called a pedestrian refuge. You stop in the middle of that so that traffic can clear before you walk across the rest of the road. So there's a lot of easy improvements that we can make and very affordable. We can do it cheap. We can do it quick. I talked about pavement preservation program. This is one road that we did last summer in Ward 5. This is up in the Somerset area-ish, where you can see the left road right there where there was some patching and some crack seals that we did. And then on the right, you can see that we put the slurry seal over the top, restriped it, really extends the life of the roadway, and it looks almost like a brand new road. Corrective maintenance is another one where we take that top layer of pavement off and we put a new layer down. And then rehabilitation is when the road is at the end of its useful life, but the materials are still good. So we can reuse those materials and then rebuild the road from the bottom up. Project that we just wrapped up here this summer, the 7th Street, 6th Street, West Street pavement rehabilitation program. So I did a before and after picture on these. So the pictures on the left there, you can see how beat up that road was. This roadway was at the end of its useful life, but there were also really concerning issues in terms of sidewalks. There weren't sidewalks along a lot of this stretch. So you can see the second picture, a lot better. The roadways replaced and there are sidewalks. There's also a median that they put up there on the corner of Keystone to prevent left turns so that you reduce the likelihood of crashes when people are pulling out of those businesses right there. Over here on the right, those two pictures, you can see on the left especially just dirt and rock. Now it's a sidewalk down below. So this was a smaller job, 3 different streets, but one that we think makes a really big difference for people who live in these areas. Another project. This one isn't technically in Ward 5, but it has a big impact on people that live in Ward 5 and travel down towards downtown Reno or even south of maybe like Plum Lane or something like that. So one of the things we're doing, the West 4th Street Safety Project, we started working on this back in February. The 2 biggest things that you'll notice on this roadway are the 2 roundabouts that we're building. One of them is at Summit Ridge Drive, and then the other one is over at Stoker Avenue. So this is a pavement rehabilitation program where we're rebuilding the road. But when we do these projects, we look at the entire corridor to find out how we can make it better for everyone. One of the things that we did get when we studied this roadway was a lot of people are speeding through here. Currently, it's a 4-lane road. It used to be the highway, and there isn't enough traffic on that roadway to warrant 4 lanes. So reduce the lanes, put in the roundabouts that'll reduce the speeding. It also gave them some room to build a multi-use path so that people can walk or ride their bikes along this corridor as well. So this one is underway, and I think this should be wrapped up in the springtime. Another one that's not in Ward 5, but kind of connects to that West 4th Street Safety Project is West 4th Street Downtown. We just completed this one last month. One of the things that you'll really notice is that right picture, those fancy lights we put in along it. It's got lights for traffic and also for pedestrians. They change colors. So this happened right before the 4th of July. So they lit up when we first turned them on, lit them up red, white, and blue. There is also a lot of infrastructure work in terms of bike lanes and ADA ramps to make things a lot better. The intersection on that graphic on the left, they redid the intersection of Vine and West 4th Street and really fixed that weird turn that used to go into where the Jack in the Box is and all that. McDonald's, I think, right there. And that also connects to the biggest little bike network. So that intersection right there, 4th and Vine. Vine goes all the way up into Ward 5. So does Virginia Street. So we looked at different corridors where we can improve bikeability between, say, Midtown, Old Southwest Reno, to get up north of Interstate 80, and make it more comfortable, make it safer. We'll be starting this project either later this month or early in September. The first part of it that we'll start on is Virginia Street, just putting in bike lanes. But you can see the other 4 routes there too. We'll be doing some big changes, concrete work. Some of them may be buffered bike lanes, bollards up, just to allow people that better connectivity if they want to ride their bikes through the downtown Reno area and to get across Interstate 80. One of them that's coming up next year, we had a kickoff meeting for this one from Coleman Drive to McCarran Boulevard on Keystone, rehabilitating this roadway. Another one of those roads that's at the end of its useful life. We're looking at the entire corridor. There could be some, along with the pavement rehabilitation, there could be some sidewalk improvements, driveway improvements. The intersection right there at Coleman, it's kind of funky with that, it's kind of a V shape. There could be some adjustments made to that intersection to improve safety there as well. The Northeast Connector. So you guys probably saw this in the news, and it really affects a lot of people in the region, no matter where you live, because upwards of 20,000, 25,000 people work out at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. Most of those people live in Reno and Sparks. So we went out and we did a feasibility study and alignment study to find out how can we take some of the traffic off Interstate 80. Well, we looked at where the people live that work at Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. 80% of them live north of I-80. So we looked at some routes that would connect USA Parkway to Spanish Springs or Sparks. looked at 6 different routes with countless different variables, different routes along those 6 corridors. And the 2 that came out on top were connecting Vista Boulevard right there at Golden Eagle Park to USA Parkway, or La Posada Drive down to USA Parkway. The price tags are very different. The Vista route is $275 million. La Posada route is more than $450 million. So the reason that we put this on here is because if you take some of that traffic off Interstate 80, it pays dividends for people that aren't going to USA Parkway as well, because traffic will back up all the way past the Nugget sometimes. That affects people that maybe live in Ward 5, but they work in Sparks. So this would really pay off for a lot of people that live in Reno and in Sparks. Another thing we're looking at is a commuter rail study. So this would connect downtown Reno, a location in Sparks, and a location out at USA Parkway to move people to and from Reno and Sparks to their jobs out at USA Parkway. If we were able to do this, we would have to get the blessing of Union Pacific Railroad because it's their right of way. There has to be something for them, because if we're using their capacity and adding liability to them, they would need something in return. So part of that would mean that if we go forward with this, we'd probably have to do some double tracking. There would have to be some stations. There would have to be a maintenance facility to store the trains. It would cost about $30 million just to buy the trains, cost about another $200 million to get everything up and running. So if we were going to start this tomorrow, cost about $230 million. But by 2028, if we would put all of the improvements into place, the price tag would be anywhere from $800 million to $1.2 billion. So really hefty price tag to get that going. If we got this going, day one, the projections show about 4,500 passengers daily would take it, but by 2028, around 14,000 would be taking it. So think about 14,000 people on there. That's potentially 14,000 vehicles that aren't on Interstate 80. So this one, it's a heavy lift. There's a lot of legislative work that has to go through. We have to find out who actually would have the authority to operate the rail. Would it be the county? Would RTC? Because right now, nobody really has that authority here in Washoe County. I didn't put my public transportation slides in, but one thing I'll talk about is just we've got all kinds of different programs. RTC Ride is our fixed route service. We've got 20 routes. We've been seeing month over month growth for more than 3 years, with 1 month where it didn't exceed the previous month. But that has been very successful lately. The Virginia line and the Lincoln line are BRTs. Those ones are our most successful. More than 25% of our total ridership are on those 2 routes. So that's very good. Flex Ride and Access, those are our smaller cutaway buses. Access is our paratransit. Flex Ride is our version of Uber and Lyft. Actually, the Ward 5 has the largest zone for Flex Ride in the region. It goes from Rancho San Rafael Park all the way to the state line. And that is where we don't have enough demand for fixed route. So we try to supplement it with these smaller buses where you can call it up just like an Uber or go on your app and get it. They'll come pick you up and they'll take you anywhere within that zone, or they'll take you to a bus stop and then you can go deeper into Reno or Sparks, wherever you plan on going. We also have a van pool program. We're in the top 10 in the country in terms of the number of vehicles. Last year, that reduced the vehicle miles traveled in our region by 20 million. So that's really important for reducing congestion and pollution. We also have our Taxi Bucks program, which if you're a 65-year-old or over, a veteran or a person with a disability, you can apply for this card. They'll auto load $60. You can use that for either a taxi, an Uber, or a Lyft. And every month you'll get $60 again. But it is use it or lose it. So you're not going to build up a cache of $400 to use on taxis and Ubers and Lyfts. It either goes away, but it comes back every month. We also have Smart Trips, which is traveling any way you can other than by yourself in a vehicle. And we've got, is that the last one? Oh, we got a couple of programs too for students. So if you go to any of the 4 colleges up here in Northern Nevada, Western Nevada, UNR, TMCC, DRI, if you're an employer or a student there, you can ride all the buses free of charge. And then just this last year, we started a program partnering with Washoe County School District because they were having problems with absenteeism, where students could sign up and they could ride the bus for free. We did see a slight drop in absenteeism. There are other programs that Washoe County School District is working on to also reduce it. So we're not sure exactly which one is making the dent, but we're happy that we are seeing a drop in absenteeism. We also think that it's important because some students want to do extracurricular activities, but they might not have transportation to do it. But what we've noticed the most is most of the trips that we're seeing are at the high school level, and it's for after school jobs. So it's really helping these kids that want to make a paycheck as well. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Hey, Abby Lugtug for the record. I just had a question going back to the ballot measure. So that ballot measure, if it gets approved, like we all vote for it, it still has to go through the legislature, and then the legislature can screw it all up again, and then we'll have to go back and fix it.
Yeah, so right now, Washoe County, RTC, nobody has the authority to put this into place. It has to go through the legislature. So what this ballot question just does is it tells the legislature that Washoe County residents want this or Washoe County residents don't want this. If they do move forward with it, and the legislature's been looking at this for several sessions now, they just haven't gotten it past the finish line. You never know what they're going to do. The polling that we did, we had, I think it was $50, $150, and $250, where they could choose, the people that we polled could choose how much they should pay per year. And they chose $250 and half of that for hybrids. If it goes to the legislature, who knows what that could be? It could be $500 a year, could be $50 a year. So, and we don't know, if the legislature approves it, would it be just specific to Washoe County, or would it be statewide? And if it is statewide, does that money get divvied up between RTC North, RTC South, NDOT, and all the other jurisdictions? So there's a lot that has to go through the process once it does go to the legislature.
Hi, Lindsay Darrow for the record. Thanks for coming to talk to us. I appreciate a lot of what you're doing, especially the trying to get ridership and start, giving passes to kids. And that's great to hear about after school jobs and things. As a general rule, I very much would support any fee. I basically will vote for any fee because we need money so desperately in our state to support public endeavors. But I do want to add, I often hear this issue brought up with the EVs, and obviously it's totally rational. But what is never mentioned is how I feel like our community wants to encourage people to drive EVs. There are so many other reasons other than the roadways that are part of this. So I'm a professor of public health. All of the asthma attacks, all cardiovascular events, strokes that we know are related to the air pollution coming out of tailpipes, a lot of those are paid for by Medicaid or Medicare. We have a huge problem with fires now due to global warming coming out of the tailpipes of cars, right? So as a community, we want to encourage people to have these vehicles. When I bike, I don't like breathing the air coming out of the tailpipes of internal combustion engines, right? I like riding behind clean EVs. Like, I'd rather breathe that air. We have inversion problems in our community when we have winter events. Those are made worse by air pollution coming out of the tailpipes of cars. So when we discuss these things, I'm very supportive of a fee like that. But I also want to stop subsidizing other, we need to also increase the gas tax, is my feeling, or have other ways to encourage people to drive in clean vehicles. Like, these are the bigger picture is there's a lot of other issues that we benefit from using EVs. So I guess I was sort of missing that component because, I know you're looking at it from there's a lack of funds for roads, and that's very real. But I also think there's all these other public health priorities that we need to find a way to maybe have other ways we can encourage. If we're going to start adding fees that discourage people from buying these types of vehicles, we're going to lose other benefits, and we may end up paying as a society more for healthcare and things like that. So we need to find maybe other ways to encourage people. And I would hope your division would actually be working on that kind of stuff too. I feel like you're doing a lot of really positive making it more bike friendly, public transportation, all these things that move toward those same goals. So I'd hate to see like us backtrack on some of those other goals too. So it's just general comment. But in general, like I would totally vote for the fee too, because we just need money. But I hope we can be creative about how else. Do you have any ideas for how else we can, if it starts to look a little punitive for buying EVs, how we, like as a community, can actually have other maybe more less expensive ways to encourage people to buy these types of vehicles so we can have the other benefits?
Yeah, and this is something that they've been looking at for a long time. One of the things that came out of that advisory working group was that down the road, maybe in 2040, maybe we would do away with the gas tax and every registered vehicles would pay a mileage-based fee. That way it would be just across the board. It would be equal. If you drive 1,000 miles a year, you pay for 1,000 miles. If you pay 50, or you drive 15,000 miles, that's what you pay for. So there has been some studies that that do have some different options that people can use. One of the things that with an EV fee is that the legislature has to balance is how high is too high to where you're going to discourage people from buying the EVs, but how much is too low where it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do in terms of road funding. One of the things that we are doing here at RTC is our fleet is mostly sustainable. At one point, it was 100% sustainable. Unfortunately, our electric buses, the manufacturer went bankrupt. We can't get parts for it. It's they don't get the range that diesel buses get. So we recently just put 8 hydrogen fuel cell buses into service. So those are battery buses, but the hydrogen charges the batteries. We also are replacing those 19 electric buses with hybrids. So we're still keeping our carbon footprint as low as we can. It just after, we were early adopters of the electric buses, one of the first agencies in the country to do it. And it just wasn't, the technology just wasn't there yet. And the company going bankrupt really, it messed us up. It took like 9 months just to get a horn for one of those electric buses. So it was problematic. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that various studies have looked at, and we'll see, what happens in the future. One of the reasons that this is for some people more urgent is because right now there's only about 3% of the vehicles in Washoe County are electric. But what happens in 10 years when there's 20 or 30% of them? Then you're dipping even more into the revenue. And that's why so many people think that there is a problem that needs to be solved.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Corey.
Corey Fredericks for the record. Thank you for coming again. I enjoy your talks every time. And thank you for touching on Stoker Way again. Off of what you were just saying with the buses. So we own an EV, a hybrid, and my partner bikes to work. There are quite a few infrastructure issues with just the adoption of EV already that the people who own these vehicles end up paying out for. It is quite a luxury, I think, to own an EV. And if you say were to go to some of these fast charging stations, they're often being vandalized because I think for the copper or something. There's no longer any federal incentives to be putting these fast charging stations up, as far as I know. Also, the tax incentives for having these EVs and hybrids have dropped off significantly, to my knowledge. I'm not totally up to date on it, but and we have found even trying to update our own power in our home was extremely expensive to get anything other than trickle-down charging. Along with the charging that we are paying for, we would have to pay to upgrade our home electricity and pay to upgrade the box that allows electricity to come into our home, because even if we were willing to pay for the electricity, they wouldn't upgrade the box to even allow that level of electricity, right? All of those together are a substantial cost on top of buying the vehicle. So this registration fee would be small. However, at that point, I would be hopeful that some of that money would go to improving some of the infrastructure in place for these EVs or hybrids or things like that. I also am concerned about hybrid vehicles. Not all hybrids are created the same. Majority of them still have this very large, heavy battery, which is again on the roads and helping to tear up the roads in some way. I've seen that common a lot. However, some of them are actually, you can plug them in versus others like mine. I end up driving long distances. The hybrid doesn't do very much in long distances. To my understanding, it's better for like short stop things. And when I'm doing these long distances, I end up paying for gas just the same as everybody else, right? And I get about the same amount of gas mileage as I would with a well-maintained internal combustion engine, right? So there are a lot of things that I'm curious about, like, would it be just a flat fee for all hybrids? Would it take into account if they're being charged? Would it take anything else into account? Like, for instance, did you have to upgrade your home and do all these things to also even own this vehicle? Like, or are you using, like, are there going to be any sort of surveys? Are you using these kilowatt per hour, things that you guys would be able to then potentially track, stuff like that? I just, I'm concerned about it. I agree that we all need to take care of our roads, but, and also, as you've found for the buses, the infrastructure is not quite there yet. So to add these additional fees on top of what these owners are already paying for to try and, like, for us, it's a moral and a value for us, but it costs us a lot. And at a certain point, we won't be able to afford that. So those are my concerns there.
Yeah. And when it comes to the advisory question, it is strictly, should there be a fee for EVs and hybrids? It would completely be up to the legislature to decide that. I share your concerns with the hybrids. I have a Toyota Tacoma hybrid, but it gets 20 miles per gallon. I pay about $600 a year in fuel taxes. So, if there was, let's say, a $250 EV fee and a $125 hybrid fee, I'd be paying $725 a year. So there is that. There is also, like you mentioned, a lot of the upfront costs that you've got. If you want to have that charging station in your garage for your car, the additional electricity that you're purchasing to charge your vehicle, those are all things that were looked at in the Gwynn Center. Maybe not the upfront cost to have a charger in your garage, but having the additional electricity costs along with it. I gave this presentation once, and there was a guy that there's some misunderstandings. There are some people that think that I have an EV and I'm already paying more than fuel combustion engines are. Yeah, as for at registration. Well, they're not. They don't have an additional charge that goes to local road funding. The reason that they pay more is because when they buy a brand new Cybertruck, it costs a lot more money. So they're paying $2,000 initially to register it. So there's, some misunderstanding about where that DMV money is going. But right now, when you do pay your registration, that money does not come back to local roads. But the legislature does. They have a lot of things that they got to look at, when it comes to hybrids. If they do decide to put a fee on hybrids, do they separate those into plug-in hybrids versus regular hybrids? Or what's their fuel economy? That's a lot of things that those guys have to answer.
And then I had another question. I had a few other questions. I drive 4th Street every day. I drive Stoker. I happen to drive up to Sky Mountain. I drive all the way out where you guys already put a roundabout down by Woodland, things like that. I really like all the things, well, most of the things that you've done. I love what you did on 7th Street. One thing, I understand once the 4th Street project is going to be completed that it will be a lot safer to ride on 4th Street or walk or any of those things. I can already see the paths that they're putting in, how wide they are, and I love that. And one of the things that, especially my partner bikes far more often than I do, and I'm constantly worried about the route that they're taking. For instance, when they used to ride 4th Street before, I was constantly on them. This is an unsafe route, especially at night, especially going 4th Street over McCarran and down towards Woodland, stuff like that. And I was wondering if there has ever been any thought to putting in just like bike safety paths that have been renovated. For instance, Mayberry was a popular alternative route for 4th Street goers, things like that. So it can show some of these main roadways that have been renovated and are safer for bikes, so that people who are newer to our area would be able to navigate these safer roads more frequently and be able to use them and improve our bikeability.
Yeah, and every time we do a project, whether it's a road rehabilitation project or a capacity project, we look at all the different aspects. Safety is usually number one, but we also look at pedestrian and bicycle access. We look at ADA access. So we try to make improvements for all of these things. We've got one of the, I'm blanking on what it's called right now. But it's the most dangerous intersections and corridors in the Truckee Meadows. And we look at that, and where we see the most fatalities, where we see the most crashes, we try to focus on that roadway and make some changes. One example is 6th Street between Virginia Street and 4th Street. That's a project that we'll be starting on. Well, we're going to be doing similar to what we're doing on West 4th Street. We're going to reduce the travel lanes from 4 to 3. So the third is a center travel lane, but also widen the sidewalks, have buffered bike lanes, things like that. So the high injury network, that's what it's called. So those are things that we're constantly looking at. Safety is critical when we're designing these roadways. Multi-use paths are better because they're separated off of the roadway, and everybody can use them, whether you're riding, bike, or walking.
Are there any like maps or anything though that people can reference that are updated for things like this? Like it's far safer to bike here, or are there any that are like on a sign? So if you're biking this path, it say, oh, there might be a safer path over here, or this is one of the safe paths that we have created, like here's some more that it connects to if you're trying to plan your route.
We don't have signs up, but we do have on our website, we do have a bike map. We used to have hard copies of the maps too, but nobody really likes hard copies of maps anymore, especially if you're riding your bike, you're gonna stop on your bike and unfold a map. But also, a lot of people can get on their phones and use the Google Maps.
Yeah, is it connected through Google Maps and stuff?
You can find the best routes to ride your bike through Google Maps as well, yeah.
Okay.
But we do have a bike map on our website.
Okay, great. I will be looking at that. And then Keystone and Coleman, are you guys still planning a roundabout? You kind of went around
No,
that.
I think that kind of died. They were
Okay.
looking at possibly putting a roundabout at that intersection, but they're going to be making some other improvements, possibly making that a 90 instead of, how it's a V right now, having the road come in like a 90. That way it reduces some of the visibility issues.
Okay.
Something similar was on Holcomb where Sinclair comes in. We did a couple years ago, where that was a very dangerous intersection, especially for pedestrians crossing. We ended up turning Sinclair to a 90-degree angle with Holcomb. That way, it's just better visibility for the drivers.
Yeah, that
I'll get back to you on that. There's still, that doesn't
make
start
it
till next year,
difficult
but
to
we'll have.
navigate.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last one, I know this isn't exactly the place for it, but I can't remember if we brought it up in the last time you talked about the alternatives for USA Parkway. But has any more thought gone into tolls?
No. So Mayor Lawson and the city of Sparks brought forth that as a possibility to build the road because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
We don't have the money for it right now. It's unfunded. He brought that forward because it's illegal in Nevada, and we weren't going to go out and do a study on the feasibility of a toll road if we can't build the toll road.
Yeah.
So that's why they took it to the legislature. It didn't even make it through committee. So once that died in committee, we were like, all right. And really that was just to really leave no stone unturned on how to figure out how to pay for it. I don't know if it would have penciled out, but we weren't going to waste the money on studying it, knowing that we can't do it anyway, legally. So the final report for that feasibility study just came out. It'll be on our website September 1st. the next step, if the board and the Story County Board decide to move forward, the next step would be environmental, to study those two routes or possibly just one of them, but to find out not just, we already know it's feasible, we know what the cost could be, but now we got to look at the environmental impacts, the cultural impacts, because there are, petroglyphs up there and things like that. So there's all these things that we have to study. Once that's done, then we can figure out, all right, now that this is done, should we move forward? Should we build a road? How are we going to pay for it? Should it be public-private partnership? We would probably need a lot of federal funding, possibly a mega grant or an infra grant, because when you're talking, our total budget at RTC is about $330 million. Well, when you're talking about a $450 million La Posada route or a $275 million Vista route, we can't do that. So there'd have to be some money coming from other places. If NDOT can pitch in, if the feds can pitch in $100,000, if Tesla, Panasonic, all those guys, if they can pitch in some money, Story County, it's going to be a puzzle to put together in order to get the funding for it.
Well, having sat in that traffic on a regular basis, not that I go to USA Parkway, I tend to go beyond, more rural, and I get caught in that traffic inevitably when there is an accident or a landslide or whatever it is. If my phone just randomly asked me if I was willing to pay 50 cents for a new road to get out of that traffic, I would absolutely do it every single time. So I am down for looking at ulterior alternatives. If there was a privately funded firm that would be able to just randomly ask people that, like, I would be down. Or if I could go to that, if there was just a sign saying, hey, if you're interested in alternatives, go to this website, I would do that because I'm sitting there anyways. So I am all in favor for anything you're doing to get traffic off of that road, because I don't even work out there and I'm frequently inconvenienced by it. I have been late to pick up my kids at school. I haven't been able, it's a serious issue for everybody, including our truck drivers who are, long haul driving through that and everything. It makes it really inaccessible to get to our more rural communities, to get to important needs like healthcare and stuff like that. So
yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we're looking so hard at this, is because NDOT is going in and they're going to widen it from 4 lanes to 6, the interstate, but it's still just one route. There's no alternate route still. So if there's a bad winter storm or a crash, it's still going to back up. So there's no relief. If we build this road, the projections right now are about 4,500 cars would travel that road every day. About 50,000 travel between Sparks and USA Parkway every day. So you're talking a little less than 10%, but it takes some off, And if there is some kind of a situation on the freeway, people have that option where they can take, even if they live south of I-80, maybe they want to take that route up to Wingfield Springs and then cut down Veterans or something. So it just gives people options. It's also important just for the road network in Sparks and Spanish Springs, because there's only 3 north-south routes out there. And you got 49,000 cars going on Pyramid Highway right now every day. So by adding this 4th north-south route, that would relieve traffic congestion, just not on the freeway, but also Vista Boulevard, Sparks Boulevard, Pyramid Way, and ultimately Interstate 80 going all the way, more farther west. Long term, it could also have an impact on, eventually, we do have a plan in the regional transportation plan that will connect Lemon Valley to Spanish Springs. So for people that live up in the North Valleys, that would give them another route to get to USA Parkway if they wanted, which would also reduce traffic on 395 and Interstate 80. So long term, there's a lot of benefits. We think that if we build this road, it'll help a lot. If you couple it with commuter rail, the possibility of that, widening the interstate, we think that, there's a lot of improvements that can be made.
thank you very much. That's all the questions I had.
All right, Mayumi, you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Mayumi Doyama, for the record. Yeah, I was really excited to see the slide on a commuter rail to potentially going out to Trick. I was wondering, yeah, what the status of that project might be at this point. Is it, just are you talking about it? Is there any studies ongoing?
Yeah.
And where could I find some more information on that?
You can go on our website. I think we do have a tab where you can look at the commuter rail. I don't know if the study is published yet. I don't know if it's finalized or if it's a draft study right now. But even if it is final, we've still got some lifting to do when it comes to the legislature. They did have a rail working group that the legislature created that RTC was a part of. Mayor Lawson was also part of that committee. RTC Southern, there were some union members and some private citizens that were part of that group. And they came out after those meetings. I think they had 5 or 6 meetings, and they came out with some recommendations that they're going to take to the state legislature in terms of how we can improve or create commuter rail or light rail in some of the cities where it should go. I think right now there is a population cap on operating a rail, and that's only in Southern Nevada. So they would have to change the population cap in order for Reno, Sparks, and even Story County, because this rail would go into Story County. So that's a tiny county in terms of population. So there are some fixes that the legislature has to do before we can even move forward with a rail. Obviously, the negotiations with Union Pacific, which have gone well, they're working with us. But when you're looking at 800 million to 1.2 billion long-term price tag, that's another problem. So if we can make it happen, we will. There are different FTA grants that we can apply for, possibly FRA grants. So it would be a lot like building that Northeast connector. It would take a lot of different funding sources to make it happen.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming out to speak with us as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions from the board? No, hearing none. This concludes our business items. Thank you so much for coming out. Are there any board, commission, committee member report and announcements? All right, seeing none. Moving on to future agenda items. I will now open the floor to the board to request any future agenda items.
Camila Ray for the record. So I love that you're giving a Verdi report from the cab. Thank you so much for doing that. And I don't know where Verdi itself stands within the strategic plan update that the city of Reno did, but I am very interested because I live out in West Meadows as well. I'm really interested on the trajectory of projects, although some aren't even developed yet, but to standards, right? The things that we can do now before developers buy and start to plan that can help guide them into how they might develop in Verdi to be able to, coexist in a way that like really is brings Verdi forward to honor the kind of special place it is in our community. So I don't know how to have those discussions. I don't know if it's an agenda item. I don't know if it's just about us being more aware of how the strategic plan has been updated. I don't know if it is how certain development standards get established. Top of mind, I'm thinking how Sparks Victorian Square had standards that helped guide development within that area. So is that a conversation we can begin to have as a community? So it's not always residents v. developers, because it can't be that way. It goes against the fact that private property gets purchased and development happens, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. So can we lean in and get in front of that in any way? I'm super interested in that topic. And I don't know how to structure it, but that's my comment.
Yeah, sure, Cami. So tomorrow, the city is going to be hearing a presentation on the strategic plan, kind of the final plan that the Office of Policy and Strategy has been putting together after some feedback, and they might adopt it tomorrow. So that's item C2 on tomorrow's agenda. So that's been in the works for over a year now, I think. So just keep an eye out on that. We are planning to have the Assistant Director of Development Services, Angela Foos, come in the next couple of months to give a training on development. So if you have these sorts of questions where you're wondering kind of the process of development, I'm happy to pass those along to Angela so she can come prepared with some information. Otherwise, she'll be here. You can ask questions and even connect after the fact. So hopefully that's a good starting point, and then we can jump off from there.
So would your recommendation be to email you sort of the types of topics I'm interested in so it gets
Yeah,
incorporated?
I think if there's specific things, I think she's planning to give a more general development kind of training. So if you have these kind of more specific topics, I think I'd be happy to pass them on to her.
That'd be great because I do remember her training during our that was a little bit like Legos. So I would be really interested in more of the, more
Okay,
advanced topics. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Lindsay Darrow, for the record. The issue everyone always brings up to me is, of course, data centers and the huge Keystone data center that showed up overnight. Was that ever? Is that the kind of project that's ever discussed here? I feel like we talk about.
Yeah.
Was that discussed?
Yeah, data centers require a conditional use permit. So the Keystone data center is in Ward 1. So it would have gone to the Ward 1 NAB. I can't remember when that project was approved. I think maybe 2025. So yes, data centers all require conditional use permits. Conditional use permits have to come to NABs. So yes, that is something that we would see. There is a moratorium on data centers now. So we can't move any. If someone were to apply for one, we can't move it through the process. It just sits and waits until, I think council said next August after the legislative session.
I guess I would say there's a moratorium, but then eventually they're going to lift the moratorium probably. And so the idea would be to have conversations in between
Yes.
where people give feedback, right?
Yes, I think there's work being done regionally. We have I can't remember. I think she's a senior planner, Lauren Knox, in the Development Services Department. I'm not sure what the community engagement is looking like yet right now because I think there's a lot of coordination with regional, but I can reach out and kind of see where and when that might happen.
I don't know. I mean, I don't personally have anything, like I don't feel educated enough on that topic, but I feel like that's the community thing that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a group that's organizing people. I'll send it to Callie and you can follow them. They just did a big thing at RPM the other day, and that's the group to pay attention to. They're driving the combo. So
Yeah, it's the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, TMRPA.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Our final item of the evening is public comment. Staff liaison Kelly, is there any final public comment?
I do not have any attendees online. I don't have any public comment cards in person.
All right. Now I'm looking to adjourn this meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
Lindsay Darrow, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Can I get a second from someone, please?
Abby Lugtug, second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes. Good night, everybody.